2021. Welcome members of the public gallery. Nice to see so many people here tonight on a cold winter's night. Just in relation to apologies, members on leave of absence, we do have, is it approved leave? So I have Councillor Toffelberg on approved leave of absence, and we do have two council members joining us by Zoom, Councillor Joanne Fotakis and Councillor Susan Gontaszewski. Both are feeling unwell, so thank you for your 2021. Okay, thank you very much for coming along for budget night. Really appreciate that. It's amazing effort. We've all had a bit of the lurgy here at the City of Vincent and apologise that I wasn't here at the briefing last week for the same reason. We will go to public question time and receiving of public statements. Welcome community members. This is your moment to come up to the microphone and say what you would like to say in relation to tonight's agenda. We do just ask that you state your name, the suburb in which you reside, and the item that you were dealing with this evening. And just if you could keep your comments to 3 minutes. I've just realised for the first time ever in presiding a meeting, I've forgotten to acknowledge country. Please forgive me. This has never happened before. So I'd just like to pause and acknowledge that we meet on the lands of the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. Back to public question time. There's no set order. It's just whoever would like to come up to the microphone first, but we do time you to 3 minutes and I will let you know when your time has concluded. So the microphone is yours.
Good evening. My name's Andrew Aud. I live in North Perth. I'm speaking with respect to, I think it's the first point in the agenda, I might be mistaken, but it's with respect to the calming measures, the traffic calming measures in North Perth. I have submitted, I was here last week and raised it, and here tonight at the official meeting. It's with, I've submitted a submission, which hopefully you are aware of or have a copy of by now. Specifically, with these calming measures, I'm talking with respect to the residents in Camellia Street between Vincent Street and Claverton Street. This petition is by the actual people that it affects, that live in the street, that have been there for 10, 20, 30 years, not just a snapshot of what's going on in the street. And that has been without incident over this time. And so the residents, a number of them, not all of them could get on the petition because they're either leasing or they're renovating and we're not available. But in summary, the residents of the street of the proposed changes where it could affect them oppose it on a number of grounds. And some of these include, but not excluded to, is the loss of parking bays. In particular, is the opportunity cost of this is much greater than the proposed calming measures. Also, point two, young people tend to treat such measures as chicanes, as a racetrack. So it's how fast I can get through. And so what you end up having is a situation where you have a worse situation than what you have as a status quo, as they try to see how fast they can get through it. Thirdly, when you're approaching Camellia Street off Vincent Street, it's a steep incline and it's a relatively short street, so little time to gather enough speed to warrant such calming measures. And like I said, has been without incidents for the residents of which these that live in the street for the last 20 to 30 years has been without incident. So there is little room for the cars to gather enough momentum to be of significance. Fourthly, the use of the money is believed to be a lot more of greater use, for instance, on the playground that's along Lake Street. We appreciate there was the new wooden bordering put in and also that which looks lovely, but and the rubber mat that it sits on, but the actual playground itself is very sorry, that was just timing myself for you, is very tired looking, but and would be much better spent for, you know, families, getting them outdoors and encouraging them to be outdoors and being family friendly. So in summary, it's just basically the people that it affects are not for it, and that's why I've submitted the petition, and don't see the status quo being a problem, and sometimes change is for the sake of change. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Really appreciate you coming in for the second week and sharing your views with us on that North Perth calming proposal. The decision hasn't been made by council, as you know, so it's great to hear communities' voices at this time. So that will help shape the decision making on this. And happy to meet further with residents before that matter comes back to council, which I believe is scheduled for next month. Yes. So if the residents are keen to meet, just do let us know. Okay. Next speaker, please.
Hello, my name's Ashley LaFontaine. I live on Forest Street in North Perth, and I will address agenda item number 5.2. I have submitted this petition as we, the residents of Forest Street, have serious concerns around the excessive traffic volume and speed on our street, which is putting our safety at risk and depriving us of our amenity. Traffic data shows that within 1 week, 1,486 vehicles exceeded the speed limit, with some vehicles travelling over 80 kilometres per hour. The City of Vincent's local planning strategy states that local access roads give access only to abutting properties. But on Forest Street, through traffic alone accounts for almost 11,000 of the 12,734 vehicle movements per week. Non-local traffic is being directed to and from the North Perth Town Centre and the Greater District via Forest Street, which conflicts with Austroads guidelines for orderly traffic management, whereby traffic is to be directed to the most appropriate route. This is resulting in acceleration noise, road rage, trucks and vehicles mounting my verge, and an average of 1 vehicle every 18 seconds on a Saturday morning. The view from my veranda shows that amenity, safety, and aesthetics are not prioritised over vehicle movement function as Main Roads reports it should. With no restrictions to Forest Street on-street parking on weekends, access to and from my property is obstructed and unsafe. The City of Vincent's accessible city strategy states pedestrians and cyclists as defined users over heavy vehicles. But during 1 week, 357 large trucks and 9 semi-trailer trucks used our residential street. Forest Street did not come anywhere close to aligning with the City of Vincent's own strategies and plans on local area, accessibility, public health, a sustainable environment, community, physical activity, or safety. I urge councillors to demonstrate to us the positive impact your strategies can have when considering the concerns that I and fellow Forest Street residents express. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ashley. We'll certainly be in touch with you to discuss those issues. Next speaker, please.
My name is Sue Norval from Mount Lawley, addressing 5.2 Forest Street. Firstly, I'd like to congratulate the rubbish truck driver who drove on Thursday, the 3rd of June. I was travelling west on Forest Street. The rubbish truck was coming towards me. There were 2 cars parked almost opposite each other on both sides of the road. His clearance from side mirrors was approximately 1 hand width either side. It took him quite a while to manoeuvre, eventually getting through. The problems were the eastern end of Forest Street. The speed bump near William Street is useless as traffic travelling east is already slowing down to turn into William Street. Coming from William Street, drivers see an open road and speed up. Because of the drop-off down the hill, utes and trucks with loose loads make a lot of noise as their loads jump. It's loud enough to be heard inside with doors and windows closed. Parking. There are units in 583 William Street which are used for Airbnb. These people park on Forest Street. The apartments have their own secure parking area in Wasley Street, but this isn't available for casual people. This is not a rumour. I've actually met two of them. People often park their cars in Forest Street for hours on end, then catch the bus from the stand in William Street. U-turns. Cars and trucks which wish to turn into Wasley Street or Monmouth Street coming off Walcott Street travel along William and either do a U-turn in William Street at the intersection of Forest and William, or turn into Forest Street, then do a U-turn using my driveway in the road. Sometimes this requires a 3-point turn. Often people travel east up Forest Street only to find crossroads. Not wanting to turn onto William Street, they do a U-turn in Forest Street to go back the way they came. On the 8th of June, a 4-wheel drive towing a trailer turned into my driveway. Entering my carport, attempting to do a U-turn. Unfortunately, he managed to get bogged as the carport was being prepared ready for a concrete pour. He had to engage 4-wheel drive to extract himself and proceeded to do a U-turn through the intersection in William Street to go back down Forest. Exiting our carport is always a challenge. The same for the family in number 29 Forest Street. Recently, we were reversing out of our carport. After we'd started reversing, a car stopped immediately behind us. It was sheer luck we managed to see him in the wing mirror. He wasn't there when we checked it was clear. Speeding. The speed of vehicles travelling down Forest Street needs to be reduced. Is it possible to either install higher, sharper speed bumps between the ones already there, forcing the traffic to slow down, or put a chicane in the road, slowing the traffic so only one vehicle can pass through at a time? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sue. Next speaker, please.
Good evening all. My name is Ross Opolo. I'm a resident of Leederville, and I'm here to present a petition that I've tabled at this meeting for the banning of verge parking on Vincent Street, a portion of Vincent Street. As context, I'm here to advocate a meaningful community engagement between the City of Vincent and its resident stakeholders. I believe in transparency and good governance, in abiding by the laws and codes set by local government, the enforcement of breaches, and proactive and expeditious reform by council where current laws no longer serve the interests of residents and the wider community. I'm here to table a petition to ban verge parking on Vincent Street, Leederville, between Oxford and Loftus Street on the grounds that it is unsafe. This is a major arterial, as you know, and verge parking creates obstructions to a clear line of sight to oncoming traffic when residents egress from their driveways. The safety of residents must be our first priority. Verge parking should not be used to alleviate parking shortages if it compromises the safety of residents and the safety of any motorist driving within the City of Vincent. 31 of the 33 signatories to the petition, which were received in a 24-hour period over the weekend, reside on Vincent Street between Oxford and Loftus. We are saying to you, the council, that verge parking in front of our own dwellings is dangerous. And we know, because this is a safety issue, we try and mitigate daily, sometimes several times a day. Like Russian roulette, it's an accident that will most certainly happen in time, if not rectified. After 6 months of engagement with administration, we now present this to council, seeking an expeditious resolution by whatever means necessary, whether that be through effective enforcement, exercising the city's rights to signpost this street with no verge parking, or council changing the current law if needed to ban the use of verges for parking on this particular stretch of road. To the handful of neighbours that utilise this verge, I hope and trust they recognise that our community's first priority must be safety over any workaround solution to a lack of parking space on their own residence. Let's remove the danger and then work together to implore council to create policy and law for a holistic and long-term solution to parking shortages within the City of Vincent, to be addressed on a street-by-street basis if needed. I understand my questions supplementing the petition have been circulated to Council and will be answered in the minutes to this meeting or at the next meeting. These questions are intended to, in the interests of transparency, to understand Council and Administration's current and possible future intentions re the use of verge parking in the City of Vincent where it is deemed to be unsafe. Thank you.
Thanks, Ross. Just because your petition hasn't been listed on the agenda, I'm just going to check about the status of that. And also my understanding was that the city had been in contact with you through the CEO and that a body of work was underway. So CEO, can you just first of all, can we receive the petition to deal with it tonight?
Yes, Mayor Cole, we received the petition, I think a day after we published the original agenda. And then following that, we published a replacement page to include Ms. Ivler's petition. So there should be a replacement page. I'm not sure if it's printed for you, but it is available on the website.
Thank you.
It will be
as a
up to you.
presiding member, that's very useful. Thank you. CEO, just in relation to the interactions that we have had with Ross over this issue, I thought that there was a body of work underway.
Through Mayor Cole, yes, we've been in regular contact with Ross. Vincent Street, slightly unique in that it's a clear way during peak hour, rush hour times. So we do let residents park on the verge, but we have seen the footage that Ross has submitted. We can understand the issue and the concern around sight lines. There's a unique issue around a trailer, sometimes attached and sometimes unattached to a resident's vehicle, and we'll respond to the detailed questions that you put to us.
Thank you.
Just on the parking local law, is it open to us to remove the right to park on verges in specific streets, or do we need to amend the local law?
Through Mayor Cole, the restriction on verge parking would essentially be where there is a safety concern around sight lines. So we could enforce that through signage where needed. That
could be expedited. It's not some lengthy local law amendment process.
No, we could enforce that where we thought it was appropriate if there was an assessed safety need.
Okay. All right. That's good to know. All right. Thank you, Ross. We will answer your questions and we will receive your petition tonight. Next speaker, please.
Good evening. I'd like to address item 5.2 on the agenda. My name is Stephen Hindley. I live in Forest Street, North Perth. My family has had an association with this street for over 60 years. I'm not been there that long, but that's not the point. There's a number of issues in regarding to Forest Street being a local access street. I could refer to the Australian standards regarding on-street parking, doesn't comply with that. I could talk about livable neighbourhoods in the network movement, doesn't comply with that. So I'm not going to bore you with all of that, but I'll just give you a very simple background regarding Forest Street. There's 34 single houses in the section of Forest Street between Norfolk and Fitzgerald. Aged persons units, there's 10 and only 4 of them are occupied, and there's a vacant lot. Those people are very lucky. There's 32 driveways, 2 verge parking, because 2 of the houses in Forest Street don't have garages, so they have to park on the verge. And as a matter of interest, people park behind them when they've parked in there, so that's really great. And there's 1 driveway for the aged persons units, of which there are 5 car bays. There's only 4 of the aged persons units are occupied, and so there's only 2 car bays there being used for that. In the future, however, with the R40 zoning in our area, there can be an additional 16 houses could be built in our street. And if the aged persons units were to be removed, there's possibly another 8 homes to be constructed there, which will give us well in excess of 50 to 60 driveways in our short section of street. The road in itself is only 6 metres wide. We have parking on the south side of the road, which then renders the street only to be 3 metres wide. Now, bearing in mind, this is a two-way street and there's cars coming up and down, cars parked on one side, there's 3 metres wide, and then people are ducking and diving into driveways. And as Ashley has mentioned previously, they drive up on her verge to get by. With the 12,000 vehicles a week using our street, it's a very busy street, and 57% of those are going in excess of 40 kilometres an hour. So a 3 metre wide street is not really capable of doing what it's meant to be doing. The problem that we have also in driveways, which I'd like to address, is reversing out onto a street that's 3 metres wide. And if you're on the north side of the street where the parking isn't, you then get vision of the cars coming from either way down the street, which are stopping and starting. And you get out on the street, that's great, but then there's a car parked behind you. That those people sometimes move off, they get in and out of their car. It's a very dangerous situation. On the south side of the street, we're driving out, reversing out between parked cars. And because there's no line marking where the cars are allowed to park and not park, they tend to nose over driveways, makes it very, very difficult. And quite often when we have visitors there, we're out spotting for people so they can actually leave the driveway in some sort of safety. And no matter what we do, as soon as we leave the driveway, we're then confronted with cars coming in either direction. And then you have to duck into a driveway, and unless there's 2 4 metre wide driveways next to each other, there's nowhere for you to go. So it just becomes an untenable situation. So I guess the question that we need to ask of council is, who's more important? Is it the people that are travelling through Forest Street to go somewhere else within the city and using it as a rat run? Or is it the people that are parking there on the weekends, because there's only 1 hour parking in the council car park, but there's 3 hour parking in our street. The first hour in the council car park is free. From then on, you pay for it. In our street, the parking is 3 hours, and it's not monitored, I might add. You very rarely see a parking inspector go down to check to see whether there's any cars parked in the street for longer than 3 hours. The other situation is, this is seriously, an accident is going to happen here, very serious, very soon. And when this happens, who are we going to be looking to when it could have been avoided? Do we look to the council, look to the councillors, to keep the council staff? Because something needs to be done desperately. All we really want is safe access onto our local road, stress local road, it's now almost a connector, and the quiet enjoyment of our neighbourhood for our families, and to stop the rat run, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. I appreciate the information that you've provided to us this evening. And as mentioned, I'm happy to meet. We do have a couple of initiatives underway that won't necessarily be solving all of your issues, but we are looking at 40 kilometres across all residential roads in the City of Vincent. I actually believe that that is a really good initiative and that it will have an impact. And we're also looking at more parking ranger presence, because we have had increasing complaints about parking issues. But in relation to your street, I'm happy to come out to the street and talk to you about what could actually be done specifically for your street. Next speaker, please.
Good evening. My name is Phil Brown and I live in Ellesmere Street, North Perth. And I'm here to speak on item 11.2, which is, I believe, the Tools and Things Library. Firstly, I'd like to thank the City of Vincent for their support of Tools and Things Library, not only in giving us a home, but also a grant to fund our opening event, which was very successful, and also waiving any rental fees for the duration of the first year, in fact, until January 2020. We would, however, like to ask for some consideration on the amount we have to pay during the regular term of lease, which will start on January 2022. These are calculated at 592 per annum, plus of course the emergency service levy. We were wondering if it's possible for the City of Vincent to consider reducing this amount, as we are operating solely for the benefit of our members and the community, the majority of which are residents of the City of Vincent. And so we would be able to continue to keep the membership fees low. We also understand that the City of Vincent has no other alternative use for this building. And I would also like to say that in the perhaps rumoured, perhaps fact of international insurance crises, our main expense is insurance. And whilst we have negotiated it for this year, we do not know what our insurance premiums will be. And that is our major expenditure per annum. So we'd like to keep as much money in the bank as we can. Thank you.
Thanks, Phil. I was also intended to ask a question tonight about the 6-month period. Do you have any comments about the fact that it's 6-month terms?
I think we understand that commitment is very difficult at this stage for City of Vincent until the Britannia Reserve plan is fully completed. Or, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we would love certainty, but don't we all?
Thanks, Phil.
Thanks.
Appreciate you coming down.
Thanks.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening. I have not prepared anything. I'm just a bit of a surprise here. My name is Claudia Pahl. I'm from 41 Forest Street, and I'm here to support 5.2. Is that the, yep. I live between below Sue and before Ashley, somewhere in the middle there, near the speed bump. And yes, the traffic is incredible going up and down there, speeding a lot. There's a childcare centre down the street, and there's a fair few children in the street now as well. And I find that the cars are speeding quite a lot. We also have a lot of heavy traffic, like heavy vehicle traffic coming through. They're using it as a shortcut. Earlier this year, I have also approached the council via email about the traffic coming from William Street and along William Street, because William Street is also a very fast traveling street. And they're using Forest Street as a shortcut. So they're speeding through there, and it's at any time of the day, really. What else can I say? Oh, also, I have to agree with, I don't know, Mr. Hindley about the visibility. I know he's further down, but where we are up, there's a lot of building going on. There's a lot of skip bins blocking the view, and also some of the cars parking when we come out of our driveways is very difficult at times. And as people speeding down the hill, it's very, very dangerous. In regards to my children or the children in the street, crossing the road is at times very difficult as well. So just wanted to address that. Thank you.
Very well done. As a first effort at a council meeting, we'd love to see you back again, Claudia. Next speaker, please.
My name is Laurie Saunders and I live in Forest Street, North Perth, and I rise to address item 5.2. I regularly ride a bike to work or for exercise and consider myself highly experienced in all conditions. I've had some of my worst near misses since living in Forest Street, and I'm not convinced that's due to my age. This year alone, I have experienced the following. As I rode east from Fitzgerald, I was forced onto the verge by an oncoming car that chose to accelerate past parked cars. As I rode west towards Fitzgerald, I was forced to squeeze between parked cars as a vehicle quickly reversed from a driveway to get their trip underway before another car came close to them. I managed to take evasive action to avoid contact. But what could these situations have meant for a child or an adult trying to get back on a bike after many years of not riding one? After attending a City of Vincent Sustainable Transport promotional event, some of the driver behaviour concerns beyond this include cars regularly blocking driveways or using them to conduct three-point turns to change directions, often under pressure from approaching traffic, cars and trucks mounting verges as they failed to negotiate shared road space, vehicles performing turning manoeuvres into and out of City of Vincent Wasley Street car park, or the small one on the opposite side of Forest Street, or parallel parking while vehicles are turning from Fitzgerald and or travelling west towards Fitzgerald. And on too many occasions, all these things are happening at the same time. I refer to this as the circus. Between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. Monday to Friday, there are on average 2.35 vehicles every minute using Forest Street. In 1 week, 1,486 vehicles within the week exceeded the current speed limit, 50 kilometres per hour. 131 exceeded 60 kilometres per hour, 12 exceeded 70, and 3 exceeded 80. These stats are from the City of Vincent. I, as a cyclist, have to share one lane of roadway with traffic coming from both directions. These issues conflict with the City of Vincent's vision stated in the Accessible City Strategy and the Sustainable Environment Strategy. Both of these talk around safety for pedestrians and cyclists. The City of Vincent's Public Health Plan details the importance of the built environment supporting the health and well-being by having good walkability, space for bike riding, allowing ease of access to organised and incidental physical activity. I ask you, how can residents have ease of access to incidental physical activity when it is unsafe? Our section of Forest Street is now home to a number of young children. I fear for their safety as they ride a bike, cross the road, walk a dog, chase a ball, all standard childhood behaviours. I'll finish by asking, before I finish, I'd just like to thank Councillor Gontaszewski and for her input at different times. We met with her and council staff in March 2019. Sadly, we've not heard back from council staff. But my question is, are you prepared to accept a fatality before you consider, let alone implement, some form of safety management plan for a demonstrated heavily trafficked speeding environment? Are you prepared to accept the death of a child due to your lack of action? Thank you.
Thanks, Laurie. I'm always happy to, as I say, meet with residents and talk about this in more detail on site. Next speaker, please.
My name is Ray Lewis and I am a ratepayer and signatory to the petition, and I reside at Forest Street, North Perth, between Norfolk Street and Fitzgerald Street. And I'm speaking in support of item 5.2 on the agenda. The final sentence of the petition reads, and I quote, "Stop this discrimination and allow the residents and ratepayers to enjoy the amenities the street should provide." And I emphasise should provide, as other residents enjoy in surrounding streets to meet equitable outcomes. I walk my dog from Forest Street to Hyde Park 5 or 6 times a week. As I walk to Hyde Park, I walk down to Norfolk Street, then pass Alma Road, Raglan Road, Grosvenor Road and Chelmsford Road. I often walk up those streets to Ethel Street, then through to Hyde Park. In none of Alma Road, Raglan Road, Grosvenor Road or Chelmsford Road do I encounter cars parked or travelling through those streets anything like what we experience in Forest Street. It is very easy crossing those streets. I don't have time to wait for oncoming traffic until it is safe to cross over, or for traffic that needs to traverse between parked cars, waiting to obtain unrestricted passage in those streets. However, all of which is the case when trying to cross over to the other side of Forest Street. I've spoken to many residents of Alma Road, Raglan Road, Grosvenor Road and Chelmsford Road, and none of them have those problems. Occasionally I try to drive my dog to Hyde Park. However, as there is a waiting time often to get out of the driveway and causes frustration, I then resort back to parking the car in the garage and walk to Hyde Park. What matters worse is the fact that Forest Street is only 6 metres wide. and all of the matters others have spoken about are exacerbated in Forest Street. As residents of Forest Street, we suffer from loss of amenity. Amenity means a desirable or useful feature of a building or place. Estate agents advise of 3 factors when buying a property: location, location, and location. But why in Forest Street, North Perth, our location? All we ask for is an equitable outcome, as residents of surrounding streets enjoy. We don't expect more, but why do we have to experience less? Why do we have to put up with traffic congestion? Question mark, a big question mark. Finally, the council has created this problem by turning a blind eye to Forest Street, and it is therefore incumbent on council to rectify the problem it has created and not us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. Next speaker, please. Just wondering if there are many more people from Forest Street that wish to speak this evening. Okay, I'm just noting that we do have to adopt our budget this evening. Are there any further speakers on other matters? Yep, come forward, please.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. My name is Miriam Moretti. I live on Wright Street in Highgate. Thank you for the opportunity. I've not had the opportunity to address this current council. It's been many years since I was last here discussing another open space matter. And tonight I'd like to discuss agenda item 12.1, the Barley Street car park options for future use consultation. I have extensively read, I was able to obtain an A3 copy, so I could read the fine print of all of the detailed feedback provided by people that chose to take part in the public consultation. I was one of the respondents. I wasn't aware that a couple of people had the opportunity to provide, there were 2 written submissions in the back further to initial comments. I wasn't able to do that. But I'm really, really passionate about the idea of having an opportunity to have a small area of open space. And I really feel passionate that this would be an incredible loss, not just for Vincent community, but all of the people that come and use the local area that feed the multitude of economies that depend on visitors and locals alike. I'm quite concerned about the administration's idea that the best use for the lot of land at Lot 48 is to just simply sell it. I believe in this current market and the strategic location in that particular part of Beaufort Street, which many people believe has been neglected and in dire need of a small area of green open space respite. It would be an incredible loss to the future of what we could really do with that area. I really applaud this council. In the years that I've lived in the area, I have noticed probably close to 20 years the difference in the culture and the approach and the inclusiveness, just amazing things that we don't see in other inner city areas like the 40 k's an hour speed limit that we're trying to achieve. There are problems in implementing all of these things. We've got to police those things, but I really want to talk about the opportunity to do something really great. And I feel in the community and within a lot of my peers, we're all parents of very young children that use the area a lot. And I think during the daytime, it's quite alarming to see more people with small kids interacting with the Beaufort Street sign than you see the number of cars in that particular car park. And I think, I mean, simply just to ignore the results of that consultation and just go for a quick sale to make maybe $1 million in the context of, I appreciate that we've got fiscal issues that need to be addressed by council in light of COVID, but I think that would be such a narrow-minded approach to ignore the strategic location and the opportunity this represents. I realise I'm running out of time. I just want to show everybody that with the results of the consultation, there was an overwhelming majority that really favoured the land swap, but there's also a lot of business owners that wanted to keep some form of car park. And I feel that getting rid of that car park and not acquiring another area where we could address the need for cars. We've all heard tonight the amount of usage cars in the area and the visitors as well as the locals that rely on that. I think that we've really got to address both issues and not just simply one issue at a time of just selling this or making a town square or getting rid of car parking. People really need this council to take the innovative approach that we've seen glimpses of, but we could really do much better. And I really hope that perhaps more proper consultation is done or just a foresight is taken. And
Miriam, we are
responsibility.
running very far over your 3 minutes, and
Okay,
in
I'm
fairness
sorry,
to others, I
I'll
will
finish
have to draw you
Thank
to an
you
end,
for the
but thank you. Really
opportunity.
appreciate your feedback and comments, and we will discuss this item tonight and talk about some of the things that you've mentioned. Are there any further speakers this evening?
Dudley Meyer, Highgate. I've got 9 questions in a brief statement. Question 1, what council workshops have been held since the 13th of April 2021 and what items were presented at each workshop? Question 2, can you confirm that the city indicated to the East Perth and Subiaco football clubs that the city would submit an expression of interest to hold the Waffle Grand Final at Leederville Oval? Question 3, can you confirm that the city did not submit an expression of interest as promised? Question 4, can you confirm that both the local Leederville business community and the football clubs stood to significantly benefit financially if the grand final was held at Leederville? What's the city's estimate of these financial benefits? Question 5, will the CEO take personal responsibility for not submitting the EOI? If not, who is personally responsible? Question 6, if the answer to the previous question does not specify the persons responsible or is otherwise evasive, does the CEO agree that this will show that the claim that the administration is accountable is questionable and that it sets a bad example for the rest of the administration? Question 7, will the city staff and council make a submission on the proposed development? Will the city staff and council make a submission on the proposed development on the corner of Alma and Fitzgerald Streets when the submissions are sought by the State Development Assessment Unit, just as other local governments have done in the past? If not, why not? Question 8, can you confirm that the answer to my previous question about the advertising the annual budget was incorrect and misleading, and that the only information provided when the differential rates were advertised for comment were the rates themselves and a document about the objects and reasons for differential rates? Why was an incorrect answer provided which made it sound as if the city complied with their policy when in fact it hadn't? Question 9, the information about the Barley Street car park occupancy does not contain the numbers for Friday and Saturday nights. Why didn't the staff undertake further counts on these nights once the COVID lockdown ceased? There were about 5 or 6 Fridays and Saturdays since then. That's the end of the questions. A statement on item 10.2, the commercial waste. I've already indicated to council that I think the engagement with business was totally inadequate and that very few businesses are aware of the micro-business service. The director probably takes a different view. So my challenge to the council is, don't believe either of us. Go and find out for yourself. Go and ask a few random businesses, not the ones I tell you, not the ones that the staff tell you. Just find out for yourself. Make sure you pick the small businesses that are currently using the system and not those larger ones that have already gone to commercial collectors a long time ago. The other thing is, I've challenged the $699 fee for micro businesses. The staff said it would be based on a full cost recovery. And I think $699 is well above the full cost. Bayswater will be charging about $370 for their commercial FOGO system this coming year. Serling will charge less. The director justified the $699 by saying that it was benchmarked to other local governments. Just one more sentence.
I think your 3-minute warnings are going off everywhere, Dudley.
The idea about looking at other local governments should not be about finding the worst one and then trying to do a little bit better. It should be about finding the best one and trying to match it or improve on it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dudley, and thanks for the letter that you sent through yesterday. Are there any further comments during public question time? Okay, thank you all. Appreciate you all coming down, particularly the large contingent from Forest Street. Look forward to catching up with you on your street at a time that suits you. And thank you very much, everyone, for coming tonight. You're very welcome to stay for the discussion And the way that we deal with items is that we deal with those that have been raised by members of the public gallery first. But we do come to petitions pretty shortly because that is one of the first items ordinarily anyway. So if you'd like to hear us discuss and debate on those items, they will be dealt with first. Okay. So are there any written questions or statements this evening, Manager?
Yes, there are, Mayor Cole. We have first one from Narelle O'Neill of Mount Hawthorn, item 9.5. Following questions. What mechanism does the city have in place to ensure that residents and ratepayers have equal representation to that of the Florida Athena Football Club, which can muster its members, most of whom are neither residents nor ratepayers of Vincent? Will all council members and staff of the City of Vincent register their membership of the Florida Athena Football Club as a conflict of interest? The key stakeholders are not listed in the draft consultation proposal. Can all stakeholders be identified prior to commencement of the consultation process? Can additional change room building design options also be provided, as the example given is absolutely without architectural merit and does not suit the surrounding area? Can views from the front of the facility, namely from Britannia Road, also be included in the illustrations? Will the wire fence and hedge facing the street be removed? If so, what will be in its place? No mature native tree at the site is to be removed for any reason. Have a look at the mature tree graveyard along the bike track borders to get an understanding of what is really happening in our environment. The bund can be lowered without killing off more native wildlife habitat. What is the perimeter or distance from the reserve and stadium of those residents to be consulted as part of the consultation process? By its own admission, the city has previously failed to consult sufficient residents impacted by developments. Can we be assured that this will not happen again? Can there be a fresh start and the facility, which has deep Aboriginal historical significance, be returned to its original and real name, Gallup, in line with the city's Reconciliation Action Plan, which acknowledges that the former Lakemunga Velodrome, now Litter Stadium, is a significant Noongar site? The city's RAP also states, the City of Vincent acknowledges the significance of the land and waters within our council and the importance they have to Noongar people and their well-being. The Noongar people are the traditional owners of the land and water which sustains each of us, and the city is committed to working with the Noongar community to ensure tradition, protocol and culture are upheld, respected and preserved. We endeavour to work, act, communicate and live respectfully by acknowledging and celebrating the significance Noongar people, land, water and culture play in our history, our lives today and into the future. Prior to the construction of the freeway and infill at Britannia Reserve, the whole area to Brantham Street and beyond was part of the connected and significant waterway that provided not only food, shelter and social connection, but was of deep cultural significance to the nation's first people. The area is Gallup, not Florida Athena and not Litter Stadium or Britannia Reserve, and most certainly does not belong to any of the people currently deciding its future. We should acknowledge the true owners by returning the name it was known by for centuries. Also have a question, a number of questions from Mr. Iapolo, who presented the petition earlier. I spoke with Mr. Iapolo and said that we wouldn't read out all of these questions, but they will be circulated through the minutes. Also have two more, one from Chris O'Connor of West Perth, just a statement actually to recommend Tom and Lara with their new business venture at 290 Beaufort Street. And Lachlan Wells of Leederville. In recent times, Oxford Street in Leederville has lost some popular independent restaurants, including Greens & Co, Theo & Co, Sweet Lips and Little Caesars. Meanwhile, over the same period, the number of chain restaurants such as Grilled, Guzman y Gomez, Baskin Robbins and Centura appears to have increased. While these are convenient options, I'm concerned that if the balance falls too far in favour of chain restaurants, Oxford Street will struggle to attract visitors who come here as a dining destination. In light of the large number of current vacancies on Oxford Street, has the council considered any measures to restrict or reduce the likelihood of chain venues and retailers taking over these leases and encourage independent businesses to return? That's all, Mayor Cole.
Thank you, Manager. Just on that last one about independent businesses on Leederville and Oxford Street and Newcastle, etc. Very challenging, given that change of use is being done done away with for most uses in town centres as of the 1st of July. We have actually also had a amnesty on change of use in order to try to get tenants into those buildings. Although in saying that, and whilst we have seen Baskin and Robbins come into what was an independent toy store, we are seeing a lot of independent interest in Leederville and still a lot of new independent businesses opening up. So for example, we have Will Merrick opening a new business on Newcastle Street. Will Merrick is a sort of quite famous Bali chef associated with Mama San and starts with an S. Anyone? Going, gone? We'll have to revisit that. So we do, and also with the ABN opening up and the $6 million investment in the Leederville Hotel, we have got Electric Lane, and my understanding is that the businesses that will be going into the new tenancies on that laneway have been very specifically procured, that they will be independent businesses, that the landowners are looking for long-term stable tenants that will really add to that interesting independent mix in Vincent. So, so whilst we do have some vacancies, there are huge signs of things changing. A lot happening in Leederville. I think ABN's in the process of moving into their building. So we do, whilst we have had a couple of franchises come in, the emphasis on independent is still very much there. So that will be answered in full in the next month's agenda papers, but I just thought I'd provide some comment tonight on that one. Okay, so just noting also that we do have response to previous public questions taken on notice from last month in our agenda papers for this evening. And sorry, Docs on Tap is deciding it's taking its time here tonight. If you just bear with me for a moment. So applications for leave of absence, we do have one from myself, which is for the period from the 1st to the 9th of July 2021. In putting this forward to council, I would just like to note that the Deputy Mayor is going to be absent. So during this time, I will retain my responsibilities as the spokesperson for the City of Vincent and contactable. I just won't be able to attend in-person meetings or events during this time. And I know that my other council colleagues are more than able to do that on my behalf. So thank you for your support. So that is for the 1st to the 9th of July. Could I have a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Castle, seconded by Councillor Loden. All those in favour? I declare that carried. Thank you very much. The next item is the receiving of petitions, deputations and presentations. And as we've heard this evening, we have had 4 petitions presented this evening. That's probably a record for us for some time. And it's great to see our residents turn out and talk about the issues that matter to them this evening. The first petition was from Andrew Auld in relation to the proposal that is the North Perth traffic calming proposal that has recently been advertised. The advertising has concluded, and a report is due to council next month on that matter. So it's still very much something that's under consideration. In terms of this petition, my recommendation to council is that I will reach out to Andrew to see if he'd like to have a meeting to talk about this in more detail, but this petition be received, and that instead of having a special report on this, that this would form part of the report to council on the North Perth traffic calming proposal. Does that sound okay to everybody? All right, I'll put that. Can I have a mover and seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Castle, seconded by Councillor Smith. All those in favour? Thank you. I declare that carried. The next petition was from Ashley LaFontaine and the Forest Street crew, who turned out in force tonight to talk about the issues that they're experiencing on Forest Street. I have mentioned already that I would be happy to go out and meet with the residents on the street, but my recommendation to council members is that we receive this report, this petition, and request a report be prepared to council. And I'll just ask our director what sort of time frame we could be looking at to receive a report on Forest Street back to council. Would next month be too soon?
Through you, Mayor Cole, yeah, potentially, because I know we've collected some data, but I'm not sure how much we've got. So I think 2 months would be what we would need to be sure.
So if we say no later than the September meeting. Okay, great. Can I have a mover and seconder for that, please? Moved by Councillor Hallett, seconded by Councillor Fotakis. All those in favour? I declare that carried. The third petition is from Lindley Cohen relating to the odour of 7 grams chicken at 212 to 214 Lake Street, Perth. Before we move to deal with this, is there any update from administration on this item? I understand that there has been compliance activity on this item and that things have been moving along, but Director, do you have anything to add?
Yes, through you, Mayor Cole. We received a complaint a number of months ago about the odour issues. The main concern, obviously, other than the odour itself, was that the building the operator had commenced operation without complying with the building code in relation to ventilation. So we've been working with the applicant or the operator to ensure that they did comply. That involved putting in place essentially a chimney and a stack and a ventilation system, which they've now done, and they are now compliant with the building code and the Australian standards in relation to ventilation. So we have worked with the applicant, with the operator to do this. We hadn't received any further. Before the works were completed, we advised all of the complainants about those works, so they were aware, and we asked them to contact us if they had any further concerns with the odour in the area. We haven't received any further contact from anyone until late last week, just before the petition came in, early last week, just before the petition came in. So now there's clearly an odour nuisance. We do have the ability under the health local law to investigate odour nuisances. There is quite a small penalty associated with breaches and nuisances that aren't rectified. So we do have further ability to take compliance action. We can set that out in our response. We can provide that to you at the next council meeting, setting out exactly what we're proposing to do in relation to compliance on this matter from this point, now that we are aware that the odour issue has continued.
Thank you, Director, but I assume you won't be waiting until next month, just be reporting back to us on what has been happening. Okay, and given this is a compliance matter, are there any governance issues around council receiving a report back on this?
Through you, Mayor Cole, council, there's no issue with receiving a report back. We would make sure to keep any confidential information confidential. But in terms of dealing with the petition itself, council still has the ability to determine how to deal with it immediately.
Thank you very much, Manager. And what time frame would next month be reasonable?
Yes, next month is fine. Yeah.
All right. So this is a motion to receive the petition and to request a report from administration for next month's council meeting. Moved Councillor Hallett, seconded Councillor Wallace. All those in favour? I declare that carried. The fourth petition this evening was from Ross Iapolo, who is petitioning in relation to the verge parking issues on the south side of Vincent Street. It is something that we had feedback from the CEO has been under consideration and would like, is it possible on this one, because this has been an existing complaint, is it possible for council to get a report back on this for next month? Yes, okay. All right, if we receive this petition for a report to come back to council next month, move Councillor Castle, seconded Councillor Loden. All those in favour? Declare that carried. Okay. All right, we'll move on to confirmation of minutes for the ordinary council meeting of the 18th of May 2021. Can I please have a mover and seconder to adopt the minutes? Moved Councillor Fotakis, seconded Councillor Hallett. All those in favour? Declare the minutes adopted. Announcements by the presiding member. I just wanted to briefly announce that we do have NAIDOC Week celebrations coming up. Last year, we really did try to raise the bar on our NAIDOC Week celebrations, and this year we're going to be doing that again once more. The NAIDOC theme for 2021 is Hill Country, and it's about really understanding that country is more than just a place for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, but it's inherent to identity. We will be holding daily free events for our community during this time, and it is really lovely that it coincides with school holidays. So there's events that will be fantastic for children, for adults, and for families. This includes an inspirational Hill the Country talk at the Vincent Community Centre with Barry Maguire, a Balladong Wajak Noongar man, who the City of Vincent have had pleasure of experiencing this talk, and it is always wonderful to spend time learning from Barry. We also have Noongar language classes. We have a children's class and an adults class on offer. And we'll be running a series of events in the Pickle District, which has really become a bit of a hub for NAIDOC Week celebrations. The day in particular to get down to the Pickle District, for those who haven't heard of that, is a very cool emerging arts hub happening in West Perth between the freeway and Newcastle Street. It's filled with art galleries, studios, it's got the Backlot Cinema, event spaces. It's really an interesting area to have a look around. And on the 6th of July, that will be opened up for celebration of Aboriginal art, music, culture and movie showings at the Backlot Cinema. And then we have the big finale on the Saturday for the NAIDOC round footy match, which is going to be free to all community members down at Leederville Oval. So a whole week of events to look forward to for NAIDOC Week, and hope that community members will come along and get involved in that. Declarations of interest. CEO.
Through you, Mayor Cole, the first declaration of interest noted in the agenda is from Councillor Loden in impartiality interest in relation to item 7.2, which is the management agreement for the Vincent Tool Library. The extent of the interest is that Councillor Loden's mother is a member of the Tool Library and other members supported his election campaign. The second declaration of interest is from yourself, Mayor Cole, in relation to item 9.5, which is the Britannia Reserve Development Plan, noting that your son is a junior member of the Florida Athena Football Club that uses the reserve for training and games. And that's all the declarations received tonight.
Thank you, CEO. Just to be extremely cautious, I might also just make a declaration of impartiality interest in that I'm a member of the Tools and Things Library to pay my $75 membership fee. I haven't actually come and borrowed anything yet, but just putting that on the record. And Alex Castle and Dan Loden, because we are community representatives and we get involved in our community and support these great initiatives. So that's what it's all about. So if we could just note that in the agenda too, in the minutes rather. Okay, so just to recap on where we are at so far, we have had the following items raised by members of the public gallery. We've dealt with petitions, which was 5.2, the item that was discussed most this evening, but we've also had mentioned 11.2, 12.1, 10.2, and the very brief mention of 9.1. Does that warrant that item being pulled forward if it's just been a congratulatory message? I think we probably need to, just to be sure. Okay, yep. Okay, so in addition to the items already noted and raised by members of the public gallery, I now go to council members. I'll go in the normal order that we go to because I've tried to mix it up and it's thrown people before. So I'll go to Councillor Hallett. I think further Councillor Castle, Councillor Wallace, Councillor Loden.
Sorry, 11.3 and 10.2.
Did you say 10.2? Yeah, okay. Then I would go to Councillor Fotakis. You're good? Okay. Councillor Smith. Councillor Gondaszewski. Okay, I just want to check that we've got all items, that we've got amendments laying on the table here. So if you could just bear with us for a minute. Yep, so we've got 11.7. We've got the budget, which I believe is a absolute majority decision anyway. 12.1. Yes, we've got that. And 12.5. Okay. Yes, I'd also like to pull forward 9.5, Britannia Reserve Development Plan.
Through you, Mayor Cole, I can read out the items which are being proposed to be moved en bloc, which includes items 9.2, 9.3, 9.4, 10.1, 11.1, 11.4, 11.5, 11.6, 12.3, 12.4, 12.6 and 12.7.
Mayor Cole, can I ask a question?
Yes, sure.
In relation to 12.7, the wording of the recommendation refers to a decision by absolute majority, but it doesn't mention that in the agenda, in the content. So I'm just checking whether that needs to be extracted or not.
It's an excellent question.
We can remove that from the en bloc items because I think you're correct.
Yeah,
It's
that's
just not marked up in my agenda.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Castle. Can I have a mover and seconder for the en bloc items, please? Moved by Councillor Loden, seconded by Councillor Smith. All those in favour? I declare the en bloc items carried. For anyone who's new to a council meeting, that means that those items have been adopted as recommended by the administration. So we then go to the items that were raised by members of the public gallery in the order that they were raised. So that takes us to 11.2, which is management agreement, Vincent Tool Library, portion of Britannia Reserve, 41 Britannia Road, Mount Hawthorn. Can I have a mover and seconder for this item, please? Moved by Councillor Loden, seconded by Councillor Wallace.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm supportive of this, this proposal by administration. I do want to follow up on the questions asked in the gallery. My understanding is the fee is determined based on the community benefit matrix. However, it is within council's discretion to amend that if they choose. Is that correct?
Through you, Mayor, yes, we use the property management framework to determine the fees that are set there, and council at its discretion can choose to override that.
And the second one is just a continuation of the question from last week. So this fee is currently calculated as a 50% reduction in fees. Are you able to give an idea of what additional activities the Tools and Things Library might need to undertake to achieve a higher level of reduction in their fees?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Cole, there is actually a fairly detailed community benefit matrix that is applied by the team, and the team have offered to discuss that with the tool team Tools and Things Library to assist them in working out the opportunities that line up with the activities that they're involved with. I think it probably, off the top of my head, I would say that one of the areas that we do encourage at a higher level of community grant is where individual groups who might experience disadvantage are supported through the activities of the community groups. So that might be one example that I can think of where it doesn't naturally fit into a tools and things category, but another community organisation that works in that space may get a community grant, or sorry, a community benefit rebate as a result of that.
My final question was just around the duration. What would be the consequence if this lease was extended to be a year, say, for example, instead of 6 months?
Through you, Mayor Cole, I wouldn't have any concerns if council determined that they wanted to modify the request. I think administration initially had conversations about the fact that there was a lot of change going on in the environment, and the idea of having 6 months plus 6 months gave a little bit of, I suppose, bit of flexibility there for all parties to remain agile. But I think as the plans for Britannia are unfolding, I don't think 12 months versus 2 lots of 6 months is going to make an enormous amount of difference. And I think administration could support that if council wished to do that.
Councillor Wallace. Councillors. Councillor Hallett.
Can I propose an amendment to change the 6 months to 12 months?
You can. Can I just ask a question before you do that? There's two things before you sort of start going into amendments. First of all, on this, if it was to change from 6 months to 12 months, what would be the impact of saying the term was 12 months with an option term of 1 times 12 months at the city's sole discretion? I mean, that is effectively at sole discretion. I can't see that being a risk. Is that something that the administration would find difficult?
Through Mayor Cole, I agree. I think if it's at the city's discretion, then I think the impact from the city's perspective in our decision making is pretty low. So I'd be supportive of that.
Thank you. And just on the cost, the fee rather, I just wondered, because the building, I understand that, you know, the framework is there to give, you know, equity across all community groups, and that's a good thing. That's why we attempted to do it. But the question is around whether there's any dispensation for the fact that this is an as-is building that has been sitting idle for some time, hasn't had a cent really. I think, well, there might have been a couple of cents spent on it, but nothing major. Is there any mechanism under the framework to consider the condition or that sort of clause where there's just a clause that basically says you take it as is and we won't spend any money on it? Also noting that the Tool Library have put significant muscle power into cleaning both that and under the grandstand. So I just wondered if that could be something that would be worth considering as part of the fee structure.
Yeah, in response, Mayor Cole, I don't think property condition explicitly changes the fee waiver methodology that we've got set out. What we have done is, as you say, we've put a bit of money into the site to make it safe and to as a site that the Tool Library could use. And then I think we're trying to keep the general maintenance down to a minimum for both parties. So, yeah, it is a little bit of I suppose the actual fee itself is not a lot, although I understand for a small community group that's just starting out, it can feel like a lot, particularly when you've got insurance and things to worry about. So, so I do understand the discussion.
Yeah.
But the actual property condition at this point in time doesn't reflect in our fee methodology.
Okay. But if council were to exercise discretion, that might be a rationale that we could apply. Thank you, Councillor Hallett, for allowing me to ask those questions. You were moving an amendment. Yes, so do you just want to change the term in clause 1.1, or do you want to look at 1.2 as well?
Yeah, I'm fine with changing that one as well to
Okay,
match.
so to replace 6 months in both clause 1.1 and 1.2 to 12 months or 1 year. 1 year? Is that the normal? Would you?
And do that separately to
You
the
can deal with
waiver
it.
or?
Let's deal with the term and then, yeah, okay. So is everyone clear on what the amendment is? Yep, okay. It's seconded by councillor Castle. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Sorry, councillor Castle.
Thank you, Mayor Cole. I actually just have a question, a follow-on from your question. In the public gallery, it was mentioned that there are no other alternative uses for this building and probably no other tenants that would be looking to move into this area. Is that something that is part of that framework consideration? Or, you know, is the suitability and a desirability of the premises part of that consideration?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Cole, no, it's not part of the criteria. And I suppose we haven't tested that assumption either. So it's a little bit difficult for me to respond to that.
Any further comments on the term amendment? I'll just comment that when I've looked at the Britannia Reserve Master Plan, I can't see anything that would impact the tenancy. I don't see a need for 6 months. I think this is, I think even 12 months is probably on the cautious side, but I think that this is this is sort of meeting in the middle, I guess. So I support the amendment. I think this will provide a bit more surety for the Tools and Things Library. And beyond the master plan, I'd like to be in a position to look at longer tenure. Any further comments? Okay, I'll put the amendment. All those in favour? I declare that carried unanimously. Back to the substantive. Councillor Castle.
My turn. I'd like to propose another amendment just to tidy up the tenancy fee and waiver clauses. Can you remind me what the full amount is without me having to work out 246 times 2?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Cole, it was 592 per annum.
592. So
per 12 months. Yeah.
Okay. So I think the amendment would need to delete $246 and replace that with 592 to reflect that that term is now 12 months. And the further amendment would be in clause 3, approving a waiver of fees in the amount of 592.
So what was the second part of the waiver of fees?
It was just to waive the amount of the fees that are proposed as the tenancy fee, but I don't think 246 times 2 is 592.
No, it's under
592. Is that right? I wrote that down from the presentation. I didn't actually
490.
test my numbers.
So let's start again.
Apologise.
Proposing, that's okay. I should have just worked it out on the calculator. Proposing an amendment to clause 1.3 to replace $246 with $492. And in clause 3 to make the same replacement. So it would read, approves a waiver of fees in the amount of $492 for the first term.
Is there a seconder for the amendment? Seconded by Councillor Smith. Does anybody wish to speak to the amendment?
Excuse me, Mayor Cole, can I just clarify? Councillor Castle said for the first term, and if it applies just for the first 12 months, then if we exercise the second option, then that could become an issue.
I misspoke. It should it's just per term.
Thank you. Yeah.
Per term, okay.
Sorry, I'm going to update that. The clause 3 currently reads, approves a waiver of fee in the amount of $246 for the first term of the management agreement. So I'm not proposing to change that waiver is just for the first term, just the amount of the waiver to reflect the difference in the term.
So the impact is that instead of it being a 6-month waiver, it becomes a 12-month waiver. Yes, okay. All right, are we all clear on what the amendment is before us? Okay, everybody, does anyone have any questions about the amendment? Okay, anyone has any comments? Okay, I'll put the amendment. All those in favour? I declare that carried. We're back to the substantive. Is there any further amendments or comments in relation to the amended substantive? Okay, I'll put it. All those in favour? I declare that carried. Thank you. You almost got a rent increase there, Tool Library, but I think you're walking out of here better off than when you came in. Thank you. Okay, so the next item raised was 12.1, dealing with commercial waste, I believe. Sorry, no, this is results of consultation, Barley Street car park options for future use. Could I please have a mover and seconder for this item? Moved by Councillor Loden, seconded by Councillor Wallace. Got a team happening tonight. Well done.
The boys are back. This is an interesting one because we went out to consult and basically everybody said that they wanted us to turn it into a park, but we can't because the guys next door aren't prepared to swap it. So it comes out as a bit of a false result when you look at it. There is clearly very strong support for retaining that parking, and there is a question in my mind. I do note there's two amendments on this, so I'm happy to consider those amendments. I'm, to be honest, leaning on the side of retaining this and keeping the parking going for a longer period of time, but I'm interested to hear other people's thoughts and debate.
Councillor Wallace.
Thanks, Michael. There was a question from the gallery tonight about reviewing use of the car park post-COVID on Friday and Saturday nights. Has that been undertaken? Just to the Executive Director, but he's not here.
Through Mayor Cole, yes, there was a comment from the gallery about undertaking weekend surveys because we had to, we stopped the surveys when we went into the last COVID lockdown. We did recommence those surveys and did an extra 3 days on the 28th, 29th and 30th of May, and that information is included in the report.
Thanks. Yeah, look, I'm similar to Councillor Loden, leaning against this one. I understand there's an alternative recommendation coming forward, so I'll leave it open to that.
Councillors, any further comments? Councillor Loden? Oh, hang on, you're the mover. You're
I was
asking
just
a
going to
question?
move an amendment.
You're going to move an amendment?
Councillor Toppelberg's amendment.
Okay, yep. The amendment on the green?
Yep, the amendment on the green, that's just deleting clause 8 about authorising the CEO to continue discussions with the current or future landowners, and if I can get a seconder, I'll speak to it.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Hallett is seconding.
Thank you. Well, it's supported by administration anyway, but I do agree that if this item did get up as is, that we would want, and there was no land sale that was successful, then we would need to come back to council for a discussion and decision around how we proceed from there. So I think it's an appropriate amendment.
Councillor Hallett, quite straightforward. Anyone else? Okay, I'll put the amendment. All those in favour? Councillor Fotakis, yep, great, thank you very much. All right, that's amended the substantive. Are there any further comments on the substantive motion? Councillor Gontaszewski.
Thank you, Mayor Cole. Just have some questions, sort of relates to a possible alternative in relation to not proceeding with the land sale. I note that administration's recommendation is to commence the land sale at this time due to, I guess, the current pressures in the real estate market, and therefore, with a view to obtaining the best price for the land, but also before the neighbouring landowner begins development on their properties. As there's an existing lease over to the city over those properties, can you explain how the neighbouring properties could commence development prior to the lease finishing in February 2022?
Through you, Mayor Cole, it wasn't the intention of that comment to imply that the neighbouring landowner could start developing before the lease came to an end. Just that due to the time that it would take to probably sell the property, we would recommend to commence now, and then probably by the time the lease expires, we could have a potential sale.
Yeah, okay. I don't support this recommendation. I think that there is a perceived need within the community for this car park. I think that during the day it's quite bleak at the Barley Street car park, but much like Mr. Meyer, I've certainly been doing my own counts of the car park over the past few months as well, and I can definitely attest that it is chockers in the evenings on Fridays and Saturdays and Thursdays as well, and maybe more so if the Elford gets a Wednesday night session happening the way that they used to at the Scotsman. Anyway, I don't necessarily assume that with the current First Start Freight provisions that this would be a money-making car park overall, but I think that I'm not, given the community sentiment and recent development approvals in the area, the need to perhaps ensure that we consider cost commitments that would be required by the city should we move away from this lease. A number of other factors. I am of a mind to just continue with the current lease and make some changes to the way that we charge for parking within that car park, which I'll speak to if this recommendation fails.
Councillors, you'll close debate, so I will speak first. In relation to this item, I think we do really need to highlight the fact that there was a 300 signature petition from local businesses, which has been counted as one submission. So that's difficult when holding up the pie chart, that hasn't really been represented well. So we do know that there is that sentiment from 300 people that signed the petition that wanted the car park to stay. So that's the first thing. Secondly, I think that one of the communication issues for us is that we do need to communicate very well that, and this was, I think the consultation did this well in terms of the coloured map to show that 2/3 of the car park is privately owned. So this idea that we are forever able to offer a car park in this location is not up to the City of Vincent. The lot that we have would not form a serviceable car park. It's about 450 square metres, and I think you maybe have some parallel parking on one side. It would be very, very limited. So what the private landowners decide to do, and we understand that they are for the first time in a long time interested in developing, that will be the natural trigger, regardless of what we do, that will be a trigger point for what happens to the car park. So I have gone through this process and come out the other side thinking that to forgo land sale of the car park potentially, which was estimated around the $900,000 mark, plus $1 million investment in a town square, is simply beyond the City of Vincent's means at this time. And I was really keen for us to explore other options, because with the creation of public spaces in town centres, the major cost is usually the land, and we do have the option to look at whether Grosvenor Road between the the name, is it Ellington? The Elford, the Old Scotto, the Elford Hotel and the IGA. I would really like to look into that opportunity there further, and I think that should be part of any motion that council does adopt this evening, because I think that we've learned some lessons in our creation of public spaces in town centres. And one of the things that I have learned is that you go to a space that is already activated. You don't try to activate something that doesn't have any activation. We don't know what the development will look like, what ground floor uses they might have, whether it will interact well with a park, whether it will simply sort of present as a forecourt to a development rather than a genuine open space. And I really did take on board Councillor Wallace's comment about its proximity to Hungry Jack's, just noting some of the issues that we have had with World Square being adjacent to McDonald's. And that was a significant part of my considerations around the town square idea, cost, what is it that we're activating, the unknowns around that, and the proximity to Hungry Jack's could be problematic based on experience at World Square. So in relation to the car park, I'm open to keeping this running as a car park for the time being. We have been using ratepayers' money to fund the car park operation because the leasing fees have been quite expensive. I believe they're at $120,000 per annum. We are currently on a 50% reduction with the landowners. That's $60,000. That lease expires in February 2022, and there may be a chance that that arrangement could continue for another year. So it has been costing ratepayers money to keep the car park. People look at it and see ticket machines and think that we're making money of it, but it has actually been at significant cost to ratepayers to the tune of $80,000 from memory.
Through Mayor Cole, yes. In previous years, it's been upwards of 100.
Upwards of $100,000. So that's a significant cost to run a car park. So yes, we would need to look at the way that that car park runs so that it doesn't cost ratepayers as much money to keep it running. So as it stands, I'm happy to hold on the land sale and do a bit more investigative work. But as part of that investigative work, I would really like for that to include investigation of a public square on Grosvenor. But that perhaps can be discussed a bit further later on. Are there any further comments on the substantive? Just if anyone hasn't spoken, Councillor Loden will close debate. Over to you, Councillor Loden.
Thank you, Mayor Cole. I did half weather vane, nearly did a Matt Buckles and backflipped on my position. But I am not supportive of the current recommendation as it stands. Long term, this piece of land will be sold, I think, and I think probably in the shorter term too, realistically, as we look at what the land development there is doing. It is a big problem that we are subsidising this. Maybe the proposal to reduce that, to remove the 1 hour free, will help to address some of that gap, but it is going to be a challenge. That is a challenge to this and a negative aspect to continuing to operate in this fashion. So I would like to see proposal coming forward in that regard, but I do think we need to have a clear plan for where that money is going to go. If we simply stick it in the bank, we would have been better off just holding the land effectively until we're ready to, we've found an appropriate use for it, because that land will appreciate in value. Recognise it's a good time now. That being said, if the neighbouring landowner all of a sudden became very keen, I would suggest that they should make us an offer that we cannot refuse, and then we'll go from there.
In an open market process.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, that closes debate. So I'll put the motion. All those in favour? All those against? I declare the motion lost. Is there an alternate? Councillor Gontaszewski is moving. I assume it's the grey. Is there a seconder? Councillor Loden is seconding.
Thank you, Mayor Cole. I'd just like to put forward this alternative recommendation that does not proceed with the land sale. But as Councillor Loden has said, I guess puts off that decision for some time, for a future date. I think ultimately the best outcome for Beaufort Street is for this land to be developed, for there to be a continuous frontage along Beaufort Street. That I think that one of the issues I've always had is that with the Hungry Jacks and with the Barley Street car park, we've got this separation of sort of the Mount Lawley and Highgate areas in this one kind of small zone. And it creates a sort of a fairly pedestrian unfriendly, quite exposed environment along the street. So I would personally like to see the land developed. I think that one of the things that we need to sustain our local areas is we need to ensure that with the trend to sort of online purchasing, that we've actually got enough people that live locally and go to their local town centre to access the shops and service providers there. And that really probably means pushing our density into our town centres along those major transit corridors. And I think that that would be a positive thing for Beaufort Street down the track. I'm not supportive of continuing to subsidise the car park, though. I just can't reconcile that. And I think, and I accept administration's analysis that at this point in time there really is sufficient parking to accommodate use of the town centre, and that, you know, with the advent of rideshare, etc., getting into Mount Lawley and Highgate on a Friday or Saturday night probably isn't my key driver for maintaining a parking lot. So this alternate would require the removal of the first hour free from this car park only. That may assist people in making a transition to the other car parks, and so the loss would not be felt so keenly should this one be sold, but it also means that we're not subsidising this car park. And it also, the alternate also requires for some detailed or some additional thinking on an exit strategy from this lot to be prepared for discussion with council. And for some of the issues that have been raised by community and have been raised by the Beaufort Street Network, and certainly by myself and other councillors and administration, recognising this through our accessible city strategy, discussions on our long-term cycle network, etc., that Beaufort Street is a street that faces unique challenges for pedestrians and cyclists. And I think we really need to have a plan for Beaufort Street to improve pedestrian and cyclist experience on the street. I think this would be beneficial for residents and business and visitors. I don't think that this doesn't specifically mention the obtaining additional green space, but I would not feel that it would be precluded from such an analysis as additional public space would provide additional greening, seating and shade within the town centre. However, I'm happy to consider amendments that may come forward for this item. Thank you.
Councillor Loden, you were the seconder. No comment. Councillors? I'm just wondering if anyone would be interested in considering the addition of a investigation of the feasibility of a public space on Grosvenor Road. Councillor Hallett, you look interested.
Yep, I'm just wondering if we can propose an amendment to basically copy clause 9 from the original motion and add that on, just to make it more specific beyond the number 5 to specifically mention a public space in Grosvenor or Barley Street to be investigated.
Just trying to go to clause 9 just to check the wording there. Yep. Is there a seconder for that amendment? Councillor Loden is seconding. Any discussion on the amendment? Okay, I'll put it. All those in favour? Declare that carried. Back to the substantive. Is there any further comments in relation to this substantive motion? If I could just ask a quick question. If this, I don't know if I'm putting on the spot here, Manager, but if we remove the first hour free from the Barley Street car park, would this car park generate revenue for the City of Vincent, or will it be cost neutral, or we just reduce the impact?
Through you, Mayor Cole, from the initial analysis that we did, removal of the first hour free could result in essentially breaking even for the car park. What we didn't include in the model that we prepared was any loss of or any reduced level of demand due to essentially an increase in price, and also due to Raglan and Chelmsford car parks being nearby and retaining their first hour free status. So understandably, they would presumably become more busy, while this one becomes less busy, but also earns more money.
That all makes sense, but I guess it is an attempt to make the car park break even, which is what we should be aiming for. So I think that's a good thing. Thank you for that clarification. Any further comments or questions? Councillor Fotakis?
Thank you, Mayor. Just had a question, just on those calculations, are they done on the current lease, or assuming that we have a return to the previous much higher lease?
Through Matt Cole, they were done on the calculation of the lease going from $60,000 this year to approximately $90,000 in the next year.
That all, Councillor Fotakis? Yes. Any further comments or questions? Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? I declare that carried. That's adopted. Okay, the next item raised, is anyone here for commercial waste? Because I know that Tom's waiting here for 9.1, so we might just go to 9.1 so that you don't have to hang around and listen to us any further. But you are very welcome to if you're enjoying yourself. Okay, so I'll just quickly go to 9.1, which is number 290 Beaufort Street, Perth, change of use to restaurant, cafe, shop and small bar, including alterations, additions and signage, amendment to approved. Can I have a mover and seconder for this item? Moved by Councillor Wallace, seconded by Councillor Loden.
Thanks, Mayor Cole. I don't have too much to say about this one. I guess I was disappointed when Tom's closed in Leederville, but very happy that I found a new place in Highgate. So happy to support the officer's recommendation for approval. Just a question to infrastructure and environment. I guess there's a small garden bed opposite the proposed development. I think it's just got a tree in it at the moment. There's potentially some potential for further landscaping treatments. I was just wondering if you could maybe have a conversation with the proponent about what might look good there.
Yes, Mayor Cole, we can certainly do that. We're always looking for opportunities to green up an area, so we're happy to do that.
Yes, we have got a grant from the state government to plant trees down the median of Beaufort Street in that area. So I think it'd be really nice to match it or use some of that funding if it's not very very specific about where the trees must be planted. But I think there's a great opportunity there to have some better landscaping. Yep. That was seconded by Councillor Loden. Do you wish to speak? No? Any further comments? I just want to say congratulations, Tom. We really miss you in Leederville, and that was a pretty sad thing to see you to move. So this has been fantastic news. We're very excited that not only are you returning, but your business looks like it's taking it to the next level and that you're moving into a heritage building. And I think this is an amazing precinct. There's lots of very nice things happening around this area. So we'd love to help out with some landscaping and can't wait to see you open. And congratulations to you too, Lara. Yeah, it's very sad for us when a business closes, particularly one of your tenure, but to see you rise again and do something like this, it's really fantastic and very, very exciting. So congratulations. Pleasure. Any further comments? Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? I declare that adopted. Well done. Well done. Okay, so we're going back to 10.2 now, which is Waste Strategy Project 8, Commercial Waste Collection, Progress Update and Response to Petitions. Moved by councillor Gontaszewski, seconded by councillor Loden.
Thank you, Mayor Cole. I had prepared an amendment in relation to this item just prior to considering whether I move it or not. I'd just like to clarify that the city's advised that there are strategies in place for businesses to support them during transition. And I'd just like to know what those strategies are, given the community sentiment that has been expressed in relation to the knowledge of the community around the micro-business service, the fact that the micro-service fee will only be finalised tonight. And I guess I just want to try and understand what the city is going to do so that businesses aren't caught short, and to reduce, I guess, that sort of trauma on small business. I appreciate that there's been visits and letters and newsletters, etc. But we all know as councillors and administration that sometimes it's not until the fences go up, sometimes it's not until the bulldozers turn up or the bins stop being collected that people realise, what's actually going on. And I guess I want to get an understanding of how the city can assist those businesses not to get caught short during this transition phase.
Through you, Michael, I'll do my best to answer those questions. So first thing to say about micro businesses, I think we reported last time, and it's in the notes, that there were 15 businesses that were potentially interested in taking up the micro business service. That number's down to 5 now. There are 5 that are waiting to find out when the fee is approved for us to give them a call tomorrow and say this is the fee. I think I put in the notes as well, they collecting second quotes and, so comparing us to other providers, so which is good for them, good practice. So I think the risk around people sitting and waiting for the micro business service isn't that big, when we're talking about 5 premises or, 5 businesses. So in terms of the strategies to, I accept what the Deputy Mayor says about, until we actually turn up on the day, and some people will be waiting for that or want to be prepared. Then we did discuss at the workshop some of those strategies, which was essentially to give people extra time. So we've allowed a month to remove all the bins. If we turn up on bin collection day and there really is a problem, then, we can give those businesses extra time to arrange a commercial service and leave the bins in place. And we've been talking to the providers. They've been telling us, again, I put that in the notes, they've been telling us they're getting a good take-up, they've got lots of stock, they are waiting for that last minute where people finally do it, but they're also reporting lots of people have signed up, and you can see that we've already done requests for, I think, 20 businesses to remove their bins a week early next week. So things are looking, it is hard to, have all the data in front of us, but the signs are positive, I think, if that helps.
Thank you. I'm not a business owner, and so but I know, as a resident, I put my bins out the night before, and the bin usually comes when I'm very rarely asleep, but I'm usually inside screaming at my children or something, and I'm not really paying attention to the bin being collected. And I'm just imagining that might be the case for some of the businesses here. I appreciate that you said that the city will give people extra time if they need extra time to arrange an alternative service, including potentially exploring the micro business service if appropriate. But I guess, how will we know, without getting positive confirmation from those businesses at the time we're taking the bins, knock on the door, etc. How would we know that those businesses need extra time? And if, for example, someone was caught short, how could the city assist them in the intervening time? If either they wanted to come forward for the micro business service process, which I recognise is a discretionary service and requires an assessment and an approval process, or if they want to arrange something with a private contractor, which I appreciate would probably have a more rapid turnaround time.
Through you, Mayor Cole. So there is a process involved. So on collection day, the bin will be emptied, and then someone comes behind and tags the bin with a big tag to say, do not use, this bin is be collected. We also have to remember going back that the bins are now stickered. So all the bins have been identified and stickered with this bit. These bins are removed on the 1st of July, I think is what the sticker says. And they've all had a personal visit. And I think we're on the 3rd letter, you know, in amongst some other communication as well. So we're feeling that we've done some sort of mass coverage and people have seen those stickers on bins. So even if you've missed, you know, Facebook or all the other methods, you will see a sticker on the bin. So, but on that collection day, the bin will get collected, then it'll get tagged, and then a second truck and a group of staff come behind to remove the bin. So if someone does come out at that time and says, oh, I haven't arranged anything, I can see you trying to take my bin, then, you know, we can deal with that on the ground. If we've taken the bin away and then we get a phone call saying, I didn't know this was happening, my bin's gone, we've got extra staff available taking telephone calls to deal with that. So we'll be able to sort something out if they can't get a commercial service quickly. So we feel that we've got, as I said, a number of strategies to deal with those eventualities, and we are expecting that that will happen in some cases at least.
Okay, and just for clarification, that it's administration's view that if I guess a positive confirmation was required from each business, formal or informal, prior to that tagged bin being removed by that second truck, that this would not be possible. And if so, is this because the removal of the tagged bin is likely to occur outside of business hours, or that it might result in those bins that are tagged and not usable kind of hanging around for a long period of time without being collected?
Yes, Michael. So if I understand the question, there is a time lapse between the bin being emptied and tagged, because the truck will move fairly fast and empty the bin, but then there is time taken for the truck to come behind and collect the bins. So there is a lag. That could take the rest of the day, even though the bin's emptied at 7 a.m. or whatever. And that's because the bin needs to be dismantled, the lid comes off, the wheel. So there is some time where the bin will be visible on street with a tag on it, as well as a sticker where businesses will see activity on the street or go to bring their bin back in, but see that it's been tagged. So there is an opportunity, and it's not instant. It's not bin emptied, bin removed. There's a lot more time involved for staff, I think, we're using to come behind. So there is that opportunity. So through Michael, does that answer the question?
I think so. Just in terms of the people who may want to be using put in an application for the micro business service, I appreciate that you've sort of advised that the current number you're working with at the moment is about 5, but also appreciate that number could grow. For those businesses that have a live application, what would be the process for them?
Yes, Michael. So the 15 that we started with, we've had conversations with, explained how the service. I think a lot of people are deciding to make the move now because they see the FOGO bin coming. I think that's the turning point when they realise that their rubbish bin will drop to 140 litre and be collected once a fortnight. So they're not waiting for October. They are making that change now. So that's how the 15 have gone to the 5. It's those conversations, I think. I mean, I don't think it's the cost. I think it's the conversations about what's coming and when they realise exactly what the service is. So the 5 that we've already had conversations with them, we can, and they'll get a call tomorrow if the fee is approved tonight, whatever the fee is. I know there's probably an amendment coming. So we'll see what that is, and then we'll call and say, well, this is the fee. Do you want us to proceed? And then we'll do a quick assessment of the premises. I mean, because we've already talked to them, I think the feeling is that they would qualify. So yeah, it'll be a straightforward process.
Okay, sorry, I'm going to just want to be really clear. But if someone other than those 5 businesses had their bins taken away or tagged, right, went, oh my God, I had no idea about this. You know, I don't read Facebook. I haven't opened my mail. I haven't seen the trucks saying what the FOGO and looked on the website and all the rest of it. As I have to be perfectly honest, that is kind of me in a lot of a lot of respects as well. Like I can absolutely relate to people or businesses that might have a lot of other stuff going on and might occasionally leave a letter unopened for a while. But I do think that if those people had that realization, rang the city and said, I think I might qualify for this micro business service because I'm, and 140 litre general rubbish collected once a fortnight doesn't bother me. But my bin's either been taken away or I got the letter and it's going next week. What can happen for me in that transition time until I find out if I qualify for that service?
Yeah, through you, Nicole. So we totally recognise the situation you're talking about, and we want to be reasonable. We're not going to be unreasonable. We've got extra staff available, and you've met some of the staff at the workshop. They're pretty, they're very professional. They know what they're doing. They will work hard to be flexible and turn that around quickly. And if it means taking a bin back, that's not going to be difficult. There'll be a truck somewhere full of bins. So we'll be able to sort it out. We've got the precinct crew, we've got even the engineering staff will be available if we need them. So we feel that we've got plenty of resource to deal with those, I suppose, flexible arrangements.
Okay. I've asked questions. I haven't spoken or moved any amendments at this stage, so I'd be happy to just consider where everybody else is at. But I thank you for your responses, Executive Director. I think a number of my concerns have been allayed at this stage.
Councillor Loden.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move an amendment, not quite the amendment that there was one provided via email by Councillor Gontaszewski. I'd just like to move the second part of that, which is that Council requests a further report on the outcome of item 2, outcome of the rollout, the ceasing of the commercial waste at the August Council meeting. So that one was originally proposed to be for the item 2, but just to get an update on how we're going with that, and by that point in time, by the August meeting, we should have a high level of certainty, or at least a degree of comfort on how this is progressing.
But just before you start going into why, I'll just get a seconder. Councillor Castle, go ahead.
I think I'm done.
Okay. Councillor Castle, do you wish to speak to the amendment?
Are supportive of this amendment. I'm just clarifying that the wording is just that it requests a further report at the August meeting. That's the gist of it.
Yes, no problems.
And through Michael, if I can add, an update report is straightforward. Remember, there is a council, part of the council resolution when you made the decision was to get another report in 6 months' time. But if you want an update report in August, then that's, we can do that.
It might be a phasing out of the e-permits monthly report and a phasing in of the commercial waste. Okay, so we have the amendment. Does anyone wish to speak to it? I'll put it. All those in favour?
All right, can I just confirm the amendment that was on the screen wasn't what Councillor Loden was saying? I don't think.
The amendment is that Council requests a further report on the ceasing of the commercial waste service at the August 2021 Council meeting.
Thank you, yes.
So all those in favour? That's carried. We're back to the substantive. Can I just ask a question? Oh, sorry, you're still mid-throw. Go for it.
Yeah, so just my feedback on this, I appreciate Councillor Gontaszewski's questioning there. This is something that makes me nervous. I hear what the director's saying. We're also getting feedback from the community about this as well. So there is, my spidey senses are alerted, so to speak. I feel like we are there, but I am not completely confident. So, but I think we have some good strategy in place to mitigate if all of a sudden there's all these businesses that go, oh, I don't have rubbish collection, that we can deal with that issue. But it'll be something I'm sure that the team will be keeping a very close eye on, and we will see where we're at in August, I guess. Thank you.
Just in relation to the proposed amendment that hasn't been put in relation to the confirmation of business operators that an alternative waste service has been sought. When we asked questions about this previously, we were advised that there would be a date at which the rubbish will be collected and that there will be a second truck that will come along and take the bins. I am still wondering, I understand that it might be difficult to outright confirm with business operators that an alternate waste service has been sought, but would a softer approach where it would be more along the lines of to seek to verify? Because I am concerned that when we hear from Dudley Meyer and his experiences talking to small businesses, I have had that experience. I go out to businesses and meet, and people raise this with me, and I still do think that despite best efforts, there will be those that haven't paid attention, that haven't looked at a sticker on a bin, don't even see it. Apparently, there was a request from the principal at Arranmore Senior College to add another flagpole to a median strip that I drive past regularly, and I said to him, I've never noticed there was a flagpole. Maybe there's something wrong with us, Councillor Gontaszewski, that we're so used to our surrounds that you don't take it in. But I mean, bins have got all manner of stuff on them. I would still be interested in pursuing this concept. I understand that absolute confirmation when you're collecting bins at 7 a.m. in the morning, there may be bins out, there may be no one present at the premises, it may be locked. How difficult would it be in terms of people, power, resourcing to make that connection every single time, but to have a requirement of staff to seek to verify that they have an alternate system in place. Like they can basically say, well, this business has got, sewers or clean away bins here that are present, and it's obvious that they now have an alternate service. I still feel that this checks and balance could really go a long way to a much smoother change management process. That's my thoughts on that. I can't move amendments. And I think we will probably discuss, understand that there will be a further amendment on the charging of the micro business service.
Yeah, but that's under the budget, not under
under budget,
this.
okay. The other thing that I just wanted to raise is that at the time that we put out a press release on the 2nd of June about the micro service, I did request that as the suite of communications and e-newsletter be sent to our business contacts, but I don't believe, it doesn't seem that has happened based on questions from a member of the public. Can I just get verification, because it was a request that I made?
So yeah, through Michael, I can't confirm it now. I know there's been a question from the public, and I know that the manager of marketing and comms has provided an answer about those business newsletters that contain information, but I haven't got the exact answer to that question, so I'll have to check.
Okay, well, it would have been around the 2nd or 3rd of June. It was supposed to be timed as part of the suite of communications when that press release went out on Wednesday, the 2nd of June. Seems to be a bit of a question mark over that. So I understand that there might be 5 that have expressed an interest, but I wouldn't say that we've done blanket communications on the micro business service. I think that in adopting it through the budget tonight, we should provide an e-newsletter to businesses and make it clear that this is the final wash up and the costing, etc. So they're just some thoughts from me. Councillors? Councillor Hallett?
Just a question regarding the e-newsletter, because I feel like there's some communication that only reaches 20% of our businesses.
Yeah, so through my call, I believe about 500 businesses are on that mailing list, but obviously you can see the number, there's 2,500 that are involved in this change. So I think it doesn't cover all of our businesses.
Yep, it's similar to the e-newsletter that goes out to residents. Businesses have to subscribe. One of the businesses that I met did say it would be really valuable if you just email me, because when you come in and you give stuff to my staff, it gets stuck over here and it gets like, I'll read it 6 months later. So it's a tricky one because our communication is through landlords, through our rate system. But in order to have business email addresses, we need to have that direct communication. Councillor Gontaszewski, you had a question or a comment?
Yeah, I have a couple. Sorry, just in relation to the your comments, Mayor Cole, about perhaps winding back some of the wording around the verification process around an additional service being sought. Can I just get some comment from the Executive Director in relation to what sort of activities could be undertaken through such like a verification process that may not necessarily be, formal positive confirmation. And then the second question is just in relation to the letter that's recently been sent out with the bin removal schedule. I'm presuming that's gone to, can you tell me who that's gone to? Is it just ratepayers or is it the business operators?
Yeah, so through Nicole, so when the bins are removed, there'll be operational staff, but there'll be other staff there as well. So we'll be recording as much information as we can. So imagine a business comes out and says, I'm in trouble, I haven't got another, I need to keep my bins. That will be recorded, that we've left the bins and the date will come back next. We'll talk to them about that. So we'll be recording as much as we can. It is difficult because there have been collection areas. There might be 20 bins there. We don't know exactly where they come from. Some of the bins are numbered. But we'll be recording everything we can so that, hopefully we'll be able to report that back in August. Some data. It's not perfect, like you say, because some businesses are closed in the day. They put the bins out the night before. But we'll capture as much information we can so we can get some stats to you. In terms of the letter that went out, you're right, it did go to the commercial ratepayer and it does give bin collection dates. And what's bold on that letter is that if you're a landlord, please pass this information to your tenant. So you remember, we're doing our best to cover all bases. This letter's going to the actual ratepayer, but we have visited every single premises and stick at every single bin saying that the bins are going on the 1st of July. So we've done our best to cover all angles. We haven't got a full database of those businesses, and so it's difficult to reach them.
Yeah, I do appreciate what you're saying in relation to some of those multi-unit developments and town centre businesses where it could be very challenging to identify where bins come from. But I also am thinking that it would be really useful for the staff that are following the bin collection to try and be a bit proactive during that process, rather than just reactive if they are spoken to by someone that doesn't know, if they happen to catch them. And I'm just wondering if we should be getting that included in reporting.
Are you okay there, Councillor Gontaszewski?
I'm thinking I should put forward an amendment. Can I just have the current wording on screen, please, so that I can consider the way that I'd like to amend it?
So that was the amendment the proposed amendment that was emailed to us, of which Councillor Loden has dealt with the second clause.
Yeah.
So that's it there.
think I would still like to put forward an amendment, but I want to probably soften it a little bit, because I do accept that it will be challenging to require the confirmation prior to the removal of commercial bins. So probably the wording that I'd like to put forward is that council requests administration verify or seek to verify that an alternative waste service has been sought, including the proposed micro-business service where applicable. At the time of removal of commercial bins.
Is there a seconder for the amendment? Seconded by Councillor Wallace. Do you wish to speak to it, Councillor Gontaszewski?
Just to say, I do appreciate where administration's coming from here. I do genuinely try and consider the implications of such amendments on on operational activities. But I think, you know, as I said before, one of the big lessons that I've learned since being on council is that if you don't manage the transition, it can just you can rue the day. And I still am supportive of the decision to cease a commercialised service. I do accept that some businesses have not heard about the micro-business service, will be suitable for it, and that this is a time at the removal of bins to ensure that that transition is managed to the best of our ability. Thank you.
Through you, Mayor Cole, just a suggestion in order to zone in on the issue, which is where there may not be a provider, instead of putting the language of the recommendation in the positive, could we put it in the negative, where we'd seek to verify where an alternative waste provider has not been yet been secured. So then we'll be looking for the gaps for those who don't have, where it's not obvious, or we think that there isn't a solution or alternative provider in place, and that's where we can either put transitional arrangements in place or help them contact an alternative service provider.
Councillor Gontaszewski, it's your amendment, so I'm not sure what you make of that.
I think my only thing is that, isn't it the same thing? Like, if no one's around and you see another operator's, you see commercial bins from a sewers or whatever, that indicates that they have been sought, and if no one's around and there's no bins, you know, I think that the purpose is to verify that an alternative waste provider has been secured. To verify that one hasn't been secured.
Right. You wish to stick to your amendment?
Yeah.
As moved? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And that was, so it's been moved, it's been seconded. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Yes, Councillor Castle.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question. Given the comments from administration about the extra cost in pushing that last date out to the 31st of August, was that Councillor Gontaszewski's intention to retain that end date? Because my understanding is the current project is supposed to happen between the 1st and 31st of July.
So through you, Michael, if you want me to answer that. Yeah, you're right, bin removal starts on the 5th of July and ends on the 20th of July. I mean, there's room in there, as we discussed, for people who, but that's what's currently planned, scheduled, etc. And that's what the letter says, and the stickers relate to that date as well, not later than that. So
there's no current date in the amendment. The amendment simply says, can we have the...
Can we see it again?
Wendy, could you put the amendment on the screen, please? Thank you. I thought that the date was supposed to be removed. Was that not the... Just said before the bins were removed.
I'm happy to leave the date in because if the bins have all been collected and the verifications occurred to the best of their ability and it happens before the 31st of July, then what does it matter?
Sorry, I misunderstood and thought the dates had been removed.
Thanks. I'm just trying to clarify. So it's not the intention of this amendment to stretch out that project over 2 months. Simply that the seeking to verify can happen up to the 31st of August.
Yes, ultimately, if there happens to be any delays or there comes a time at which I don't believe it's appropriate for administration to have to undertake this, process of seeking to verify. But given that it happens at the time of removal of the commercial bins, if all of that commercial bin removal is done in the next month, all of the seeking to verify will also occur in the month. And where that verification is not able to be made, I believe that should be documented and included in subsequent, report. It does not say that they must positively confirm. It's just that the process of the bin removal should include that administration should actually be seeking to verify that an alternative waste service has been sought.
Yep, that's fine. I think that's quite clear. Are there any further questions or comments on the amendment? Okay, I'll put it. All those in favour? I declare that carried. We're back to the substantive. Are there any further comments from those who haven't spoken or amendments or questions? Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? I declare that carried. Okay. So that concludes the items that were raised by members of the public gallery. I'm very conscious of the fact that we have council members who are not feeling very well here this evening. So I would like to go to the budget next so that we can deal with that item. And that is item 11.7, adoption of the annual budget 2020-22. This is an absolute majority decision. Can I have a mover and seconder for the adoption of the budget? Good on you, Councillor Loden. Moved. Seconded by Councillor Castle.
My comments on the budget depend on how amendments go. So I will reserve my right if that's possible. Thank you.
Ditto.
You're moving an amendment, eh? Okay, off you go.
I couldn't move one as the mover, so maybe I'll start with the easier ones. Firstly, I'd like to move the amendment on the Peach, requested by Emma Cole, to include the federal government LRCI program phase 3 grant funding.
Is there a seconder for this amendment? Seconded by Councillor Castle.
Thank you. I think it's pretty straightforward. Administration also supports it, so I'm happy to support the proposed amendment.
Happy to support, thanks.
Any further comments? Perhaps if I'll just briefly explain for anyone who's watching and might wonder what this is about. We have received confirmation from the federal government that the LRCI program grant funding is being increased for the City of Vincent by $541,000. Administration had suggested that this could be considered at Q1 review, but given that we have such a sizable capital works budget, I think capacity will be an issue, and I can't see that we're necessarily going to have another ability to provide $500,000 of additional capital works. So the idea is that we allocate that funding towards existing projects on the draft capital works budget, and that the money allocated to those projects then goes into the asset sustainability reserve, which I think will give the budget a slightly healthier glow, and will mean that as we continue through this period of intense capital renewal, that our asset sustainability reserve is in a better position to fund that in the following financial year. Any further comments? Okay, I'll put the amendment. All those in favour? Declare that carried. Excuse me. Lucky you're sitting over there, CEO. Councillor Loden.
Thank you. I'd like to move the amendment on the white, also requested by Mayor McCall, which is to reduce the FTE equivalent count by 0.5, and I'll speak to it in more detail if I get a second.
Is there a seconder for the motion? Amendment, Councillor Castle.
Thank you, Mayor Cole. So this amendment is to reduce the number of FTE in the future budget by 0.5. There is a number of FTE that have been added to the budget. Those have primarily been ones that are expected to have a positive business case. So we want to retain those FTE because they will support the cash flow of the city and put downward pressure on rates around ranges and parking. There's also one around landscaping architect, which will replace consultancy fees that we are currently using. However, outside of that, there is an additional 1.5 FTE, which is to be used for, I can't remember now, traffic engineer and graffiti, a 0.5 of a graffiti artist. So the proposal here is graffiti artist. We'll let that one fly. I'll just say that one was what we're doing. I think I said that in the workshop as well. So rather than having 1.5 allocated for that purpose, we're proposing to reduce that down to 1 and reducing the total FTE increase by 0.5. And that's what this amendment is about. Thank you.
Councillor Castle.
Thank you. Yes, I'm supportive of this amendment. I think that administration have identified a number of ways that we can be more efficient with some extra FTE and as Councillor Loden said, have some positive outcome as a result of these additional FTE items, such as with the parking ranges. But I think it's appropriate in this budget year that we keep things tight and in this case only allow the extra 1 FTE.
Councillors? It's okay. I will speak to it. The long-term financial plan had forecast 1 FTE. I believe it's very important that we stick to that. We are having conversations about how do we meet our extensive capital renewal works. We're giving that a good go this year with our large capital works budget, which is primarily towards, I think, 75% renewal work. But at the same time, we actually really need to keep control on our operational expenditure, particularly staffing being our most significant cost. And whilst, it's sometimes perceived as tricky to drill down into the area of staffing, given council's role, not in engaging and managing staff. The issue is that the council is responsible for all areas of budget expenditure, and staffing is the largest. I think it's a third of our operational, more than that, pushing up to 40% of our operational expenditure. So if we see growth in that area at the same time that we're trying to look at how do we fund unfunded projects, how do we get on top of renewal, how do we prevent sizable rate increases in the future? This is all part of the picture and has to be considered very seriously by council. I also just wanted to flag that in going through the budget papers, it's not really transparent around the net positive or revenue neutral FTE, and I do think that really, when you read the budget papers, it's very difficult to find and unpack that, and it was something that I struggled with just in terms of understanding that. It took a few questions and a few goes to get a pretty clear understanding of what that looked like, and I think that this amendment also seeks to bring some transparency and parameters around those additional FTE, even where cost where they might, generate revenue. It is something that we do need to keep track of, and that this isn't simply something where a pool of a team grows, for example, rangers, and that is just something that sort of is therefore a sort of a growth in FTE without it really being clear about what it is, for how long, what the purpose is, and what the measurements are coming back to council to justify whether that does continue beyond 1 year. So that's it in a nutshell. Are there any further comments? Okay, I'll put the amendment. All those in favour? I declare that carried. We're back to the substantive. Councillor Loden.
Thank you, Mayor Cole. I did request an amendment which has been drafted around the waste charge, but I don't think that's been shared with council members. And I was just wondering if we can get that up on the screen if possible.
Through you, Mayor Cole, it was circulated electronically. It hasn't been tabled.
Apologies, I must have missed it in the emails, but it's on the table there anyway.
No, I know that there was a lot of late amendments, but it's so much easier for council members to have them tabled at the meeting. Is that possible in future?
I think it was my fault because I was a bit slow getting back to the director. So I'll take a degree of responsibility there. This is just to reduce the micro-business waste and recycling service for the 2-bin and the 3-bin system. I will speak to it in more detail if I get a seconder.
See, I can't read that. So
you can just trust me if you like.
We don't have our screens anymore. I don't know if they're ever coming back.
Through you, Mayor Cole, the proposed amendment is to reduce the micro-business waste charge for the 2 and 3 bin system from 656 and 699 to a flat 520, which matches the calculation for the rate rebate for commercial waste providers.
Thank you very much, CEO. Is there a seconder? Councillor Wallace? Yep, go for it.
Thank you. Look, there's been a bit of commentary that we've had about the rate and how we've worked this out. I appreciate that administration has looked at what other providers are doing in this space on the commercial space, but there is, I guess, a perception of degree in inconsistency when we look at what other councils are doing in terms of separate waste charges, which I recognise we don't have, and I'm not going to start that conversation again. But we are basically saying to businesses that we're going to rebate you for the cost of your commercial waste, that service that we're taking back, which was set at $5.30. And so basically this is to make it such that if they then elect to take this up, they're effectively made whole in that first year, recognising that it won't be the case beyond that. I do recognise this creates an inconsistency for the properties that we have, and it's worth for council's information as well, so they're aware. There are properties that are not rateable properties that pay a commercial service and pay a higher rate. So this does create a separate inconsistency for us. But from my perspective, I think it's important that we align these two numbers at this point in time. And I'll let others consider that in the amendment.
Thanks, Michael. I support Councillor Loden's amendment. I think it makes sense to have symmetry between those two numbers. I guess I just had a question about the wording of it. It's 520 for July to September and then 520 again. Are we charging businesses twice? Does that need to be cleaned up?
Yeah, no, through you, Michael. It actually says per annum. So yeah, it depends when you join us, and yeah. And when the fees were different, we were proposing to make a correction in the date when FOGO, they switched over to FOGO. But yeah, it's per annum, and I think that's in the fees and charges.
Thank you.
Councillor Castle.
Thank you. Could we have the wording back up on the screen, please? I just have a question around administration's response. If we could zoom out a bit. I'm just wondering about the explanation that Councillor Loden gave about non-rateable properties. If you could just explain what that inequity is.
Through my call. So we also service another discretionary premises, which is non-rateable services, or Business, they are primarily residential and they are rate exempt. So an example would be Leederville Gardens, that's rate exempt status, and we service that. So we've got about 200 non-rateable properties that we service. So that's been going a long time. It's discretionary. They can go somewhere else, but 200 or so have stuck with us. So now we have well-established fee structure that we've had for a long time, and every year, we do inflation increases or whatever. So when we put the micro-business service in, we consider the service to be identical. It's the 2 bins or the 3 bins, once a week, once a fortnight, same bin sizes. So although we did look at other council, what other councils charged on their commercial service, where we started was comparing what we currently charge non-rateable properties. So as I said, Leederville Gardens is an example, a house in a church complex. So we felt it was right to align those. So that the reason for the charge that you see that's crossed out is that it aligns with what we charge non-rateable. The only difference is that based on discussions that we had at previous workshops, we did add on top of the non-rateable charge an $80 contract administration fee. So we did put that on top. So that's the only difference in what's proposed in the budget papers between non-rateable and micro businesses, if that makes sense. So our concern is you can see our comments are that we don't support it, because our concern is we'd have a micro business getting exactly the same service as a non-rateable property, but being charged less. And we didn't want that inequity.
Thank you. So can you confirm what the non-rateable residential services are being currently charged?
Through my call, the proposed charge is for next year is 575 pre-FOGO, and let me just get that right, and 656 after FOGO. And then what we've done is to arrive at the proposed fee for micro businesses, we've added an $80 contract administration fee.
Okay, thank you. Look, I understand those concerns, and it does get slightly messy having several different rates for the same service, or different charges, sorry. I think given that we were proposing to add an additional $80 fee was going to create a new different schedule for a different group of people anyway. And I think given that we are trying to smooth this transition as much as possible, that I can see that it's appropriate to align the rebate and the fee for the first year only. Obviously, we will review all of our fees and charges at next year's budget anyway. And at that point, we'll probably have a lot better idea about the amount of businesses taking this up and what the actual cost to us is in both delivering the service and in administering it. So I'll support this amendment.
Councillor Hallett.
Just a question about the admin fee. I'm assuming the non-rateable residential services don't have a admin fee calculated, and why would that be?
Through McCall, that's correct. We've never added that charge. They are residential and they are easy to manage. So we're anticipating more management required for micro businesses for our experience for commercial waste. So that was the reason for the contract administration charge. So things like more monitoring being required because of contamination, that's much more prevalent in commercial than it is in residential. So I need to correct something, sorry, McCall, because I actually got the wrong figure. I'm getting a bit mixed up with so many figures and Councillor Oden's not helping me. So what we currently charge non-rated is 575. So that will be our recommendation. We added the 80 fee and it will rise to 619 after FOGO. So those are the two figures. 575 is proposed, rising to 619 after FOGO. And what we've done is added $80 to each of those figures for the contract administration fee for micro businesses.
So can I just ask a question then? Administration's view is that the micro business waste and recycling service 2-bin system, July to September, should be 575, and the micro business waste and recycling service 3 bin system should be 619 to have parity with the non-rateable residential service.
Yes, we might call that would be parity. What you see is an additional $80 contract administration fee, but yeah, what the figures you just described would be absolute parity.
Okay, that's not the current amendment before us, so we shall press on. Comments on the amendment? Councillor Gonchevsky.
Sorry, I'm now trying to go through our fees and charges list, but where in the papers, if you could draw my attention to it, does it, hold on, I'm trying to find it. Does it talk about the current charge for non-rated residential properties? Because it appears from my reading that there is no current fee in 2021. Is it just that we used to just collect their bins and now we're going to charge? Which I'm okay with, but just checking.
Yes, through my understanding is we do charge them now. I can't explain why that's not shown on the table, but my understanding is we do charge them now. So I can see, I've got some printouts, I can see that this year's charges appear to be missing on some of those tables, but I can't explain that at the moment.
Might require a further amendment. Okay, are there any further comments in relation to the amendment before us? Okay, I'm going to put the amendment. All those in favour? No one against? That's carried. Next amendment. Councillor Loden, you're on a roll.
I think you can see my strategy here.
Working your way.
I'll move the purple. Can't believe you didn't put it on green. Anyway. Which is to add an additional 336,000 to the Capital Works program for the purpose of installing an additional 65 kilowatt solar PV system, including a 50 kilovolt inverter at Beatty Park Leisure Centre, and to be funded through increased borrowing. And I'll talk to you if I get a seconder.
Is there a seconder for the item? Seconded by Councillor Hillett.
I will apologise in advance because I think I first suggested this amendment to administration about 4 months ago. So I've had 4 months of thinking time to figure out what exactly I'm going to say. The existing position of council is that we are in a climate emergency, which implies a degree of urgency. Our sustainable environment strategy has set a target of net zero emissions by 2030. For the city, we have 3 main emission sources, being the decomposition of organic waste in our rubbish bins. We have FOGO coming in October, and zero waste to landfill, which will see this change to zero as an emission source. Assuming we're going to compost this waste, but in time we can look to move to higher order methods like biodigestion, which is not incineration. The second emission source we have is our vehicle emissions. So we have a target of zero tailpipe emissions by 2030. We can see that progressively happening as we shift out our fleet to transition to hybrid vehicles and electric vehicles, which will in time be charged by renewable energy that we produce on our facilities as well. The main other emissions point that we have is our electricity emissions. This is our biggest point source for the city. We've done good work to date on our large consumers, Beatty Park, the library, the depot and the admin building. And we have plans to execute on other buildings that are coming as part of this coming budget. Effectively, we've put solar on to meet the daytime capacity of our facilities. And then we need to wait for battery technology prices to come down to then look at storing that energy during the day to then meet our nighttime demand and move towards that zero target. Out of all the sources we have in the city, our single largest source of energy consumer is Beatty Park. To put another way, it is our most polluting point source within the city of Vincent. We have at this point in time maxed out the capacity of rooftop solar due to availability of roof space. There's approximately 65 kilowatts of power used in the middle of the day that we take out of the grid that we could easily generate by having additional solar panels if we had the room on our roofs. At this site, during the middle of the day, we'd effectively be able to run the entire facility on solar on a good sunny day. There also happens to be room for a 65 kilowatt solar array. We set that up as a counter-levered solar array in the car park out the front of the facility. So why is this a good idea? It's NPV positive. That means that we can borrow money to fund it, and the savings in our electricity bills exceed the principal and interest repayments over the facility life, i.e. it will put downward pressure on rates over time. Some might even call it a low-cost sparkle. Our strategic community plan, one of our pillars in the SCP is enhanced environment, with significant work from it, and we've received significant feedback during that creation from our community, and one of those key things was addressing climate change. Shade is going to be a powerful asset in this space. The parking spaces under here will be highly sought after by members of the community accessing the pool, particularly in the middle of summer, because it'll provide protection from those vehicles, and also in winter, in our 2 weeks of winter that we have in the City of Vincent when it rains. So this will then be seen as an added community benefit. I'd also, as a fourth point, say that this is a visual monument of our values and is a real strong opportunity to deepen our engagement with our community, and a great tool for education as well. So why is this a bad idea? And administration has provided some feedback on that. They've raised concerns around solar panels becoming cheaper over time. There's definitely a technology learning rate for solar panels. That has been accelerating in the last 10 years. But solar is now starting to become what we would describe as a mature technology. So the rate of learning is not going to be as fast as it has been in the past. But it's realistic to think that solar panels could reduce in cost by about 50% between now and say 2030. However, the carport structure and the wiring and the mains connection and all those other bits and pieces is $245,000 of the $336,000 price tag. So roughly 73%. All these materials, labours and so forth are not something that you would consider an emerging technology. These are well understood things and are in reality likely to just increase in the rate of inflation. If you assume inflation of 2.5% over 9 years, the cost of the rest of the design will increase, will increase by approximately 25%. So 25% of $245,000 is $62,000. The capex for the solar panels is $91,000. If we assume that that reduces in cost by 50% over the next 9 years, that will save us $45,000. The engineer in me comes out, right? So in all likelihood, although you will see a learning rate with solar panels, I think it's probably more realistic to expect that this is going to get more expensive to do over time. The undergrounding of power in Subi, those guys seemed like they were prophets 20 years ago when they started doing this, because it's become vastly more expensive in that time as well. Another comment is there's provision for solar already in this budget, but to my understanding, there are 3 projects in the budget, but these are all projects that have been carried over from 2019 to 2020 as part of our carryover, and that's on page 597. So at this point, this budget doesn't actually include any new solar, it's just executing stuff that we did last year. There is a concern, and it's definitely a legitimate concern around the large capital works program sitting at $2.1 million. That is a huge scope of work. This project would increase the budget by 1.5%. However, if it was added, it couldn't be delivered in the timeframe, it would form part of the carryovers that we were similar to what we did last year and the year before and the year before that. And to my understanding, the scale of carryover this would result of is significantly less than we've done historically. So this is a way to commit to doing this. And if we do reach capacity constraints, then there is the ability for that to carry over into a future year. It's not eligible for a grant, which is correct. It shouldn't be. It's an NPV positive. It's saving money, so we should just be doing it anyway. Grant funding is for things like installing batteries and stuff like that, and we will be looking to do that in the future. We need to determine the feasibility, and And one question I did have was, does this need, if this was to pass, does this need some form of amendment that we need to assess the feasibility of the concept?
Yeah, through you, Mayor, I believe we would need to do a little bit more work to bottom out the true cost so that we can, I suppose, confirm the financing and confirm the NPV values.
And would that require something different in the resolution, or is that something that administration would do within their current capacity?
No, I don't think the resolution needs to be varied, Mayor. I think that we would use this to commence the process if it was approved, go through feasibility, and if we needed to make a major project amendment for whatever reason, then we could bring that back to council and have that confirmed through a follow-up resolution.
It would appear like this, from a technology point of view, is not particularly difficult. It's been done in multiple locations, including the Dunsborough car park. If you want to see a picture, it's in the amendment. One thing that is also mentioned is the challenge around a conservation management plan, and also that it requires approval by the DPHL. And I was wondering if you could just provide some comments on what that might involve and I guess likelihood of success.
Through you, Mayor Cole, I'm not familiar with the approval process in detail. I don't know whether the CEO has any comments, but I probably, as I've indicated in the administration comments, the primary issue I think would be about the facade of BD Park and how this particular proposed structure sits in the context of the heritage. I suppose the perspective of how that heritage building sits in its place, and so that would be what we would need to discuss and seek approval for.
But I assume if they said no, then this would just disappear effectively.
Yeah, through you, Mayor, that's correct.
There's some commentary also around other locations. I do like that idea of sticking it in the pool deck. That's probably been better location. Recognise it's not quite enough space. I do wonder if this was approved, if there is flexibility within the amendment, but you could potentially do some there and also stick some out on the back on the containers that are sitting there and maybe dot it around a bit, but that might be worth considering in the future if it is approved. The last one is just around loss of parking. I do recall there used to be a bunch of staff parking to the northwest and also northeast of the facility. Does that still exist?
There is some staff parking on the northeastern side on the swimming pool lane side of the premises, but there's not many bays there now, I think.
Is there more bays than what would be lost from a solar array? Sorry, Dale.
Through you, Mayor, I actually don't know enough about what bays would be lost through the installation of this structure, so I can't really answer that, I'm afraid.
All right. Well, each councillor must consider this on its merits.
Councillor Layden, technically you're supposed to speak for 5 minutes, so I've been pretty lenient.
I'm making my concluding remarks. Consider on your merits, but for me, I appreciate that there are challenges to executing this project, but my view is in the long-term downward pressure on rates, delivering on our SCP, providing community shade and using as a tool to educate the 1.5 million facility users is an adequate justification for this to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Layden. Councillor Hallett.
Can I just ask a question about the other three solar projects that have been carried over? Is there any budget benefit from combining purchase across three plus the amount of this one?
To clarify the question, you mean amalgamating a number of solar projects and doing them as a group rather than individual?
In terms of the tendering process and getting a better deal.
So we just did a tender process with, I can't remember how many projects, but sort of 8 solar projects. And then through the transition of decision making, we dropped that to 3 projects. All I can say is when we went back to the tenders and asked them to resubmit, they gave us exactly the same prices for the smaller number of projects that they did for the bigger ones. So there's definitely logic in what you say. Putting it together in a group, quite often gives us, but we have some recent experience that they individually priced and it didn't matter how much work they won, the prices remained the same. So if that helps.
Just wondering, in terms of the feasibility of this car park structure, is that something that the DRP could look at?
Through you, Mayor Cole, from a feasibility perspective, it's possible we could ask them for some advice. They would probably not be the most appropriate group to go to for advice on feasibility. They certainly could look at the design options and provide advice on design, and they would do that, within our existing contract without any issues at all.
Happy to listen to the debate, but I lean towards supporting solar, no surprise.
Councillors, Councillor Gonchevsky.
I am leaning towards supporting this as well. I think my biggest issue is in relation to capacity, but I am kind of moved by what Councillor Loden says around carry forwards, because essentially we've been having this discussion about carry forwards with administration about this $21 million capital works budget for quite a while. And I mean, to sum up the response, it's like sometimes things that take multiple years, and if they don't get done, they just get carried forward. And then there's a lot more detail underneath that. But at the same time, I'm sort of inclined to support this project. I think that what I probably would like to see is that this is a potential funding allocation, and then it's appropriate to be dealt with under this item. And then what would need to happen is that when we look at a draft corporate business plan, we may have a line item in there that looks at a project in relation to this that sets out feasibility assessment, detailed design and approvals. I guess my question to administration is, given feasibility, detailed design and approvals and potential community engagement might take more than a year, is there a risk in putting this against this year's budget when it is, I believe, quite likely that the project duration would be of longer than 12 months before implementation was able to proceed?
Through you, Mayor Cole, I think it probably might benefit to have an early consultation with the Heritage Office, because my assumption is that it could be a quick and early no.
And I really caution against budgeting on the basis that it's going to become a carry forward. I just don't think that that is good governance. Any further comments from you, Councillor Gonchevsky?
I believe that administration had talked in their response about a potential need to do some reprioritisation of the capital works program if this was inserted. Can I just get an indication as to whether any thinking has been done on what is currently in this year's budget that might need to be pushed out if this was to be inserted? Like, would we need to have an additional recommendation around a project that wouldn't be able to be completed?
Through you, Mayor Cole, if this is adopted, we'll probably have to reassess that at the mid-year budget review once we've done some more project feasibility and scoping.
Nothing further from me.
Councillors, I'm going to speak to this because we can't proceed on the basis that we'd adopt it and it could be carried forward. Like, I'm just not up for that. There's so many questions here. Why are we looking at approving $300,000 when we need to do feasibility studies? I mean, we can progress this project without allocating a a sizable amount of money to look at the actual feasibility, to look at the, there's so many questions here for me about heritage approvals, about the fact that can we actually get carport structures into a car park which is undulating and just not, no surface in Beatty Park appears slightly even, even. Do we know that our geothermal is running at an optimal level and producing the renewable energy that we need it to produce? Just there's so many questions here. Like I am moved by Councillor Loden's words to do a feasibility study, but I'm not moved to add this into the capital works budget. That's it in a nutshell for me, because I think that we are absolutely at capacity with our capital works programming. We are being told that we must spend on assets that need renewal. This is, yes, it pays for itself, but over 14 to 19 years. This is quite a different proposition to previous payback periods. But I see the attraction, I do, genuinely. But for me, it's feasibility only at this stage. And if we do really get excited and a good feasibility study comes back that says, yes, this is doable, yes, early engagement with Heritage says this can be done in the car park, we can find a structure that the DRP are prepared to say that's not hideously ugly and will actually add value to not just the people parking in the shade, but it will actually enhance the car park, then, tick those boxes, move ahead, consider funding at quarter, mid-year review next year when we actually might have some space in the capital works program, but not to allocate $336,000 to this project now in its absolute infancy without all of those questions being answered. So I support moving forward through feasibility assessment, but not funding. Comments? Councillor Fotakis.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I think, like everybody in the room, supportive of the investment in solar PV and measures to reduce our carbon footprint and help meet our target of zero net greenhouse gas emissions from energy use by 2030. And I think we've made significant moves in recent years. However, I believe that there's much more work to be done. I agree with me, Cole. I think our capital works program, we've been hearing that over recent months, is under a lot of pressure. We've just looked at adjusting our budget past, staff wanting additional staff. So I'm just a little bit concerned about, what we risk losing or what we risk delaying if we take on additional work. But ditto, and I agree with Mayor Cole that agree with some feasibility work. I also have concerns about the lengthy payback period. So I think we just need to do some work in that space as well. So I won't be supportive of the amendment in its current form in total, but should there be an amendment to remove the additional budget, I might consider that.
Councillors, Councillor Wallace.
Thanks, Mayor Cole. So I haven't been considering this amendment for 4 months like Councillor Loden, but I guess I have been considering climate change for a lot longer than that. The city's official position is that we're in a climate emergency, and I think that requires bold and aggressive action. And this is certainly bold and aggressive action. My main concerns are around visual impacts and how that will be managed. And that's definitely going to be a challenge with the Heritage Council and DPLH. But I'm reasonably satisfied by the MPV estimates that we have and by the promise of a feasibility investigation going forward. So yeah, I'm happy or even proud to support this amendment.
Councillors, is anyone who hasn't spoken wish to speak before I put the amendment? Okay, I'll put the Councillor Gontaszewski.
I just wanted to ask a question in relation to what Councillor Fotakis raised around where the appropriate vehicle would be. If council was of a view not to support this amendment or budget allocation, where the appropriate vehicle would be, I presume it's the CVP, to initiate a project around feasibility approvals and detailed design, and where those costings would come from if we don't add some budget in tonight.
Through you, Mayor Cole, would suggest that the appropriate time would be in the project closure on the current funded solar PV projects, plus reconsideration of the 5 or so other potential sites which had a much shorter payback period of 4 to 5 years, and to have that as a comparative assessment of the best cost benefit of future solar after we've installed what's been currently funded.
I don't really understand that, CEO. How is that how does that start a process? I mean, if we get a report to council to say this is the outcome or closing report, surely the corporate business plan is the place to generate new feasibility work or new projects?
Through Mayor Cole, we've got a current program on solar, and we did engage a consultant to provide analysis of the highest value and quickest return for solar projects. This one wasn't on that, but we've got a number of other sites that have a better cost benefit analysis. So we would suggest that we would revisit that list and include this one on that list, so council can make a decision on the relative priority of solar PV on this site, additional solar panels on this site compared to other City of Vincent sites.
When will that opportunity present itself at a council meeting?
Through Mayor Cole, the director's just mentioned we've got $20,000 to do that assessment of the next phase of solar panel installation throughout the City of Vincent, and we should be able to install and complete the current round, I'm assuming this calendar year, so that would be in time for mid-year budget review to decide whether or not we wanted to expand the Solar VP solar panel installation program within this financial year against an assessment of which ones offer the best value to the city.
I guess the question though is that if you need a formal council resolution, or there's an intent that there's either this amendment or potentially a council resolution to require a feasibility study on this project, to just rely that body of work is going to happen as part of something that's going to be reported back to us, I'm just not sure that's sufficient. So could this be added to the CBP?
Through Mayor Cole, there could be a council resolution in similar wording to what's been proposed to ask for the consideration of this site against the other sites that we've already identified.
As part of the adoption of the budget?
It wouldn't be a budget decision at this stage.
This is where the question is, where does this resolution sit? If not this budget amendment, which is live and may solve all of the issues, if not this, how does council direct administration to conduct a feasibility study into the 65 kilowatt solar PV system for Beatty Park?
Through Mayor Cole, if in the words you've just used, for council to resolve that this site be added to the potential sites for additional solar panel installation in the City of Vincent in the Capital Works program, full stop.
So you're saying we can amend the Capital Works budget attached to the budget? we need a place to give it a home. We'll just deal with the amendment. Maybe the CBP.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. I think the draft CBP sounds like an opportunity. And
Thank you, Director.
Yeah.
I see that as an opportunity too, and that's coming next month. Okay, Councillor Gontaszewski, did you have any further questions? Okay, is there any further discussion on the amendment? Put the amendment. All those in favour? All those against? Sorry, boys. No, I'm not using a casting vote tonight. We have an uneven number with Councillor. Oh no, hang on a minute. Where are we at? It was 5-3. Yep, sorry, CEO. Yes, we do have an even number. Councillor Loden, I would seriously encourage you to put forward an amendment to the CBP on this item. There's certainly a desire of council to see this through. Okay.
I would observe there is a high probability of that amendment coming forward.
I feel like you've already done the groundwork.
I've got another month to add to it as well. So
More research.
Watch out, guys.
Okay, I might have something to show you as well. Okay, any further amendments to the budget? Councillor Gontaszewski.
So I have more questions on the non-rateable charges. Just want to clarify this because the CEO has advised that there is an error in the budget papers in relation to saying that non-rated residential properties waste and recycling service two-bin system has an NA, but that we adopted it last year, so it should be there. But I went back and looked at our fees and charges from last year, and it looks as though we charged separately last year. We charged non-rated properties $386 for a 240 litre weekly garbage collection and $101 for a 240 litre fortnightly recycling collection, which would be $487 for that two-bin system. And it looks as though we're proposing to charge them $656 this year. Is that correct? And if so, why the increase?
Chair McCall, yes, Deputy Mayor, we've been trying to find the figures as well, because we do charge for non-rateable, I've confirmed that. And you're right, in previous years, we've separated the charge into different bin sizes and types, but what we've done this year is we've amalgamated the charge. So when you look at that two-bin system, currently that would amount to $629. Which breaks down as $386 for a 240 litre weekly collection of a rubbish bin. And
I had 101 for a 240 litre recycling collection.
yeah, 101 for a recycling fortnightly collection.
So that's 487.
It's a different figure. 386 plus 101. Yeah, which is 487 by my calculations. Yeah.
So what's the justification for increasing to 656?
Yes, so McCall, that's right. So it's 487 rising to 575. I think there's some notes in there about the additional landfill cost this year. And that's the main reason for the rise. Landfill costs are going up quite significantly this year.
Sorry, in the budget papers, it says that the charge for 21-22 for non-rated residential properties for a two-service system is 656.
Yeah, through your McCall, that was corrected yesterday. That should say 575. That when we were doing this review based on Councillor Loden's suggested amendment, we went back and looked at the figures and we realised that we'd added, you'll see in the comment, in a contract administration fee which shouldn't be there. So we knocked that off, issued a new page, and it goes down to 575. So the rise would be 487 this year to 575 next year. Does that make sense?
Okay. I'm probably not really comfortable charging differently for non-rated residential properties over what we've just agreed to charge micro businesses, given administration's advice that generally commercial properties have like higher lift costs than, or higher lift kilos than other types of premises. So I think it's, I'm struggling to justify it, essentially an increase of, appreciate the correction, thank you for that, but it's still an increase of almost $100. So can I just put forward an amendment to bring the non-rateable residential service collection fees in line with what we've just said we'll do to the micro business fees, please?
Councillor Gonchester, can I just ask you a question? Are you saying that the total cost with FOGO is more than $520?
For non-rateable residential properties, I believe we just corrected the micro service fees. So I think we should bring the fees for non-rateable residential fees down to being in line with what we're charging for the micro service fees minus the administration fee.
I need to go. So what is the actual fee for non-rateable residential service who will be getting FOGO?
Okay, so through you, Nicole, starting at the beginning, currently two-bin system, which is what we provide, a non-rateable property would pay 487. The confusion is it's charged as two separate bins, but the equivalent cost would be $487. We're proposing a rise to $575 for the two-bin system based on the rise in landfill costs this year. That then, the proposal is that it rises to 619 when FOGO is introduced. So that reflects the additional cost of collecting the additional bin. So those are the three things: 487 currently to 575 for two bins to 619 for three bins. And our recommendation was that micro businesses were set an equivalent level, so there was parity.
So the 487 to the 575 is due to the landfill cost. Is that correct?
Through you, Michael, yeah. So the waste team have looked at the additional costs. I mean, that's the primary additional
Is
cost.
the landfill cost, I mean, MRC hasn't adopted an increased landfilling cost.
We know the figure that they're proposing. It goes to their meeting this Thursday night, and it is an increase on the current fee. We also, you remember, we've talked a lot about the recycling processing costs, the MRV costs, and the changes in export bans. So there's a significant rise in the processing of recycling as well. So the waste team have looked at those increases in cost, and that's the reason for the uplift in the figure.
Okay, so I guess Councillor Gonchester just need to understand that before you move to amendments. I hope others found that useful, or maybe I was just being a bit slow. So I have an amendment from Councillor Gontaszewski. How would you like to deal with that interim cost of 575? Because we've got the current fee of 487, then changing from the 1st of July to 575 with the two-bin system, and then changing to 619 when the FOGO three-bin system arrives.
Didn't we just do that for the same for the micro businesses so that they were both reduced, the pre and post, the two bin and three bin?
Well, I understand those figures are just for the non-rateable residential. So even if you reduce it to 520, which is what we are rating, the fee we've agreed for the micro bin service, micro business service, that's 520, which would be less than the transitional cost of 575 while it's still a two-bin system up until October. So you could potentially just change both fees to 520.
Yes, please. That's my intention.
Does that make sense, Director?
Through you, Michael, it does make sense. It doesn't reflect the rising costs, and it doesn't reflect that I think the number that I've been given is 200 non-rateable properties next year, so that would have an impact on the budget. Might be small, I haven't worked it out, but it would have an impact on, we budgeted for those 200 services. Remembering that these are discretionary services as well, so.
So just to recap, then with the amendment, it would mean that the fee from the 1st of July is $525, regardless of whether it's a 2-bin or 3-bin service.
Yeah.
Is that okay, Councillor Gontaszewski? Is that in line with what you're seeking to do?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a seconder for the amendment? No one wants to, Councillor Fotakis is seconding. Do you wish to speak to it, Councillor Gontaszewski?
Yeah, I'll second it just to I suppose open it up for any other questions. But I do have a question with considering.
I was just
Sorry?
going to see if the mover wanted to speak to it first.
Okay, no problem. Sorry.
I just want to say that, I think that this has been challenging, not helped by the current budget papers perhaps not being easily trackable against our previous fees and charges. I also have a concern in relation to whether we're really saying, I have in terms of the cost recovery elements of these fees and the justification for the $100 increase for this year for these properties. And given that administration said that this was problematic to change the microservice because it would create an inequity, I'm going to put forward this amendment so that that inequity is addressed, particularly if we're going to consider that that inequity may be faced by, residents of aged care facilities, etc.
Thank you, Councillor Gontaszewski. Councillor Fotakis.
No, I've just answered my own question. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, great. Any further comments on the amendment? Okay, I'll put it. All those in favour? All those against? No, you're all in favour? You're against. Councillor Castle is voting against. I declare it carried. We're back to the substantive. Any further amendments on the budget? Councillor Gontaszewski.
Just a question. I note that the corporate business plan is yet to be finalised. And I believe in that corporate business plan, the Drive Capital Works program will set out appropriate levels of community engagement for certain projects under IAP2. The Capital Works budget doesn't have this information. I obviously understand it's a different structure. Given the need to get started with some of these Capital Works projects, do I need to put forward a specific amendment tonight in relation to consultation on Capital Works programs on public open space, noting that eco-zoning initiatives will have engagement as per Councillor Hallett's previous nod? Or can I get confirmation that those projects relating to Capital Works on public open space will not proceed until after the corporate business plan is adopted and or without appropriate community consultation?
Through you, Mayor Cole, any capital works or any activities by council or by administration will obviously occur under council's current policy and the level of consultation required by the current policy, but we're also working against the draft community engagement framework since its adoption and those principles which have been outlined in terms of the IAP2 spectrum. And that's occurring currently and it will occur next financial year after council has adopted the budget. We will make it much clearer in the 4-year capital works program which accompanies the corporate business plan, which element of consultation will occur for which type of capital works, and that'll be clear for each of those line items when it's presented for council's adoption.
I'm not sure that's answered my question, CEO, because I understand that the CVP is going to have that information in it. My question is, if I don't amend this budget to specifically state which capital works programs that get an approved budget under this decision must not proceed until there is appropriate community engagement, can I get confirmation that capital works programs occurring on public open space will not proceed without such consultation? Otherwise, I will just put forward an amendment to require it.
Through you, Mayor Cole, yes.
That should be covered off now in our community engagement framework in terms of what must be consulted upon. But I absolutely understand the point you make. Do you wish to move an amendment, Councillor Gonchevsky?
Not at this stage.
Okay. There is this lime green one. Are you still intending to move that one, Councillor Gonchevsky, in relation to the Barley Street car park? It was
through Mayor Cole.
Yes.
Oh,
I'm sorry, I'll just go to the manager.
I was just going to say that I didn't actually get a chance to talk with Councillor Gonchevsky about this proposal, but prepared it in advance of noting that the alternative recommendation was likely to be approved.
So this, you may not be aware, Councillor Gonchevsky, there's an amendment here on the Lime newspaper with your name on it. And this is just to tidy up removal of the first hour free from Barley Street car park in the fees and charges so that that aligns with the decision that council's just made in relation to the Barley Street car park.
Then I should move that, and I'll move it.
All right, is there a seconder for this amendment? Seconded by Councillor Smith. Is there any discussion? Okay, I'll put it. All those in favour? Declare that carried. We're back to the substantive. Are there any further amendments on the budget? Councillor Gonchevsky.
I'd just like to put forward an amendment to require community engagement in line with IAP2 principles for elements of the Capital Works program that impact user amenity or residential amenity in relation to public open space.
Is there a seconder for the amendment? Seconded by Councillor Hallett. Do you wish to speak to it further, Councillor Gonchevsky? No. Councillor Hallett. Council members, any commentary? Can we just check that Wendy has the words, says the CEO? Yes, Wendy has the words. Okay, I'll put the amendment. All those in favour? I declare that carried. We're back to the substantive. Any further amendments, comments? I usually do talk in detail about the budget at this stage, but I feel that that moment might have passed, and I will save my comments from a media release to put out, because we all know that the budget's got lots of great aspects to it. So I'll outline that in communications tomorrow. I'm just noticing that we may have someone here from Optus who might be waiting to hear. You poor thing, that I really feel for you that you've just sat through our budget amendments. Okay, so we'll go to 9.5, Britannia Reserve Development Plan.
I think we have to vote on the budget.
So sorry, everybody. We really do need to adopt this budget. We've worked pretty hard to get here. Okay, thank you, Councillor Castle. Can I please call for a vote for the adoption of the budget? All those in favour? That's passed unanimously. Thank you very much, and well done to Virginia and all of the finance team, and well, to everybody really who feeds all of the information into the budget. It is a huge undertaking, and we really appreciate all the work that's gone into this. Okay, we'll start again with 9.5, Britannia Reserve Development Plan. Can I have a mover and seconder for this item, please? I can't do it myself. Councillor Loden moved, Councillor Hallett seconding.
I'm happy to support the officer recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Hallett. Any further comments or questions? I do have one about the Optus Towers. I just wondered, I have spoken, we spoke today, I'm so sorry, I'm having a mental blank. James. I spoke to James earlier. I am of mixed minds about this because I don't think it's standard for us to include telecommunications towers in development plans. And I did think that perhaps it should be treated separately. It's normally dealt with as a leasing arrangement with the city, and then the telecommunications company will often provide some community consultation so that they can answer technical questions, and then we would obviously do our own. But I understand that there's also a request from Optus for a consideration of a second location where it could be attached to one of the light poles from the lighting, one of the lighting structures from when we put in the lighting. So the benefit that I could see that if you had more than one location and you're actually giving community the ability to have a say on this location over that location, there's some benefit I would see in having it in the development plan, but simply having one location in the development plan, it's not really, I don't see the purpose of having it in there. So it was really a question to the manager of governance around the either removal of it from the development plan so that the exploration of different locations can be had further with Optus so that we can put options out to the community, or whether we could add in the option by amendment into the development plan so that that choice, or not choice, but ability to, to talk, I mean, my understanding is we have to have a tower, but to have the community's guidance on where they would prefer that to be could be some benefit in having it in the development plan.
Through Mayor Cole, yes, I agree with that. The intent behind only having the one location was that we could still have those discussions, but from that perspective, it wouldn't seem as though it was the council or the city who was essentially deciding where exactly it should go. From that, using that situation, we would ask the applicant to do most of that consultation themselves. So they would just simply say, there's a development plan, it shows a tower in this general location. We've also got these other ideas. What does the community think? And then all of that would feed into the comments back on the development plan, and we can modify it after that. But from what you said, I think it would be administration's preference that there were multiple locations included rather than removing it all together. At least that flags with the community that we have started those discussions with Optus and Telstra, and we can then hand it over to them to finish that consultation. But again, we would try to essentially distance ourselves a bit from that whole decision-making process and leave it more up to the community and the technical requirements of the telecommunications.
So on that basis, if we were going to add additional locations for community to view as part of the development plan, do you have a form of words or a specific location that I understand that it's potentially to look at having it on a tower, lighting tower within the area that's where the cricket club need their lighting in the, what would that be? Southwest corner?
Northwest.
Northwest?
Close
South?
to the Bund.
Close to the Bund. So not towards the bike track, but closer towards the Leederville Cricket Club side.
Yes, the bike track's on the west and then further to the north of that.
Yep.
So
I'm trying to consider it as because it's, you're looking like you might have an answer, Tara. Yep.
Through you, Mayor, sorry, it is the north side where they would be proposing near the cricket club.
Well, would a council member be prepared to move either to move an amendment to remove it in its entirety, or to add in a second location, so that the purpose then is to seek some guidance from the community on location through the development plan? Councillor Loden.
I'm happy to move an amendment to show both of those on the plan to get some guidance from the community on which location would be preferred.
Can I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Castle. Wendy, are you okay with, we might need some help for Wendy with wording on the location? The addition of a second potential location for the telecommunications tower being added to the proposed lighting structure in the northwest corner of Britannia Reserve. Okay, everyone's okay with that? Okay, so it's been moved by Councillor Loden, seconded by Councillor Castle. Do you have a question, Councillor Fotakis?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I do. Just some clarity with regards to the consultation that Optus would be undertaking. Do we need to quantify that would be in accordance with our policy, number 4.1.5, community consultation, to make sure that the quality of the consultation undertaken by Optus is consistent with our own?
Through Mayor Cole, yes, we can definitely arrange that. And in addition to that initial consultation, it should also be noted that there would be further consultation under the Local Government Act if and when council decides to proceed with a lease. And there would also be further consultation as part of the development approval that's required.
Can I see the amendment as it is? I just want to just consider whether I just want some clarity on that amendment that's before us, please. If I can get that screen up, I'm not seeing the amendment from where I am.
Can you see that, Councillor Fotakis?
I can. I do. No, my brain's just not working at the moment, Mayor. Sorry. I do want to actually, I suppose we're dealing with an amendment. I just really want to add an additional reference straight after reserve that all consultations undertaken by, I mean, can we, if we qualify it as Optus to be conducted in accordance with the city's policy number 4.1.5, just so it's clear that Optus's community consultation is in alignment with our own. So if the mover and seconder are happy, that's just a further clarification.
I think we probably need, I think we should probably do that as a second amendment.
Yeah.
Yep. So if we stick with this amendment for now, we've got a mover and a seconder. We'll come back to that one, Councillor Fotakis, as a new amendment. Is there any further discussion on the amendment as it's proposed? Okay, I'll put it, all those in favour. That's all those against. Councillor Fotakis, are you voting against that amendment? Oh, you froze there, Councillor Fotakis. Were you voting for or against that amendment?
I'm voting for, but I haven't heard it. Sorry, I couldn't see anything, so I'm voting for.
Okay, thank you. And now, would you like to move your amendment?
I would, and it's just the amendment to that is after the word reserve. I can't see it on my screen. I'm sorry, I'm struggling at the moment. I won't mention the provider that I'm struggling with, my telecoms. Yeah, so with all community, consultation undertaken by Optus to be in accordance with the city's policy 4.1.5 community consultation undertaken by,
Is there a seconder for the amendment? Seconded by Councillor Smith.
Undertaken, sorry. Consultation undertaken by Optus.
Is there any further discussion on this amendment? If not, I'll put it. All those in favour? All those against? Councillor Loden voting against. I declare it carried. We're back to the substantive. Are there any further comments or questions or amendments? Councillor Smith.
Just would like to ask if the question that came through tonight by email, will that be taken up as part of the community consultation?
Through Mayor Cole, just to clarify, was that the written statement and questions provided as part of public question time? Yes, we will take up those. We can treat that response as part of this consultation process.
It will also be responded to in the agenda for next month's meeting. But yes. Okay, so Councillor Wallace, did you have a question?
Just to comment on the substantive.
Yep, sure.
Yeah, so I support the recommendation for advertising. I guess I was somewhat disappointed by the concept design that got put forward. I think it hits all the required functions of the building that we're looking for, but the form I thought was a bit lackluster. I think we don't get many opportunities in Vincent to build public infrastructure like this. So when we do, it's pretty important to get it right. But I'm looking forward to receiving future further opinions from on this from the community. But as it stands, we'll be supportive of significant reworking of the design during the detailed design process, which I understand will follow from this, and which I also understand will be a competitive process with multiple architects consulted. So, yeah, thanks.
Can I ask a question? Because that's something I agree with very much. Will the change room concept be going out as part of the consultation or just the development plan?
To Mayor Cole, the change room concept will also go out to community consultation. Following the feedback, that will be refined and come back to council for approval to go to detailed design. Then we'll go to detailed design through that competitive process as mentioned, and the detailed design will come back to council for approval before being sent to the federal government for obtaining the grant.
Okay, but at what stage will the community see it? Will they see this that's in the agenda?
To Mayor Cole, yes, they will.
That's a bit of a problem, I think, because is it standard to advertise? Can we put out the development plan and then do the detailed design work separately on the change rooms? Or can we seek for the DRP to, once you put an image out to the community, that's what will be perceived as what's being built. So we did have this discussion, I think, at one of our working group meetings about putting our best foot forward on design. Is there any steps that can be taken prior to this going out?
To Mayor Cole, to relieve maybe or answer some of those comments, the main consultation will be around the concept plan that you see that really details the site, the current analysis, and I suppose the footprint, if you like, of the structure, because we'll be looking for the detailed design to really dictate the design of the actual built form. If someone was wanting more information though, we would be looking for the attachments that you see there on the change rooms to provide to them directly, but we would be sure to let them know that this was showing the functionality and the footprint of the site, and that further design would be happening through that detailed design, and that will be based on their feedback.
Well, I think the issue is the 3D elevations. That's particularly unattractive. I think either could they have a huge strike through saying detailed design work to be completed or removed, because if that's not what it's going to look like, we shouldn't put that up there, because that is what will appear on community Facebook pages, and that's what the community will consider it will look like if we put that concept plan out with those elevations.
Mayor Cole, yes, absolutely, we could definitely do that.
So which of those options?
Through you, Mayor Cole, I just note that council's adopting just the development plan, so to advertise just the development plan. So I think we can go back and forth with council members about exactly what extra information on top of what's being adopted, which is just the development plan, not those concept perspectives, is included and in what form. So I think we've got time and opportunity to do that before we actually press go on consultation of that document.
Thank you, Director. That helps. So if we're just adopting the development plan, we're not endorsing this for part of the consultation, but I understand there will be an interest. So perhaps if we talk about what could be released to further inform community members without prejudicing the fact that they think that they might be getting something that's like a Stratco building. Okay, great. I think we have an understanding. Okay, Councillor Fotakis.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question on whether that would cause any undue delays in the process, understanding that we've got a pretty tight schedule with that. So just an assurance that there would be no additional delays.
Through you, Mayor Cole, that was the process that we were intending, so there wouldn't be any delays seen.
Any further comments or questions? Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Declare that carried. Thank you, James, for sitting through this with us. Okay, I'll take us now to item 11.3, support for the Uluru Statement from the Heart. Responses. Councillor Loden, you raised this matter. So move Councillor Loden, seconded by Councillor Castle.
Thank you, Mayor. It was just to follow up on the question. So from the briefing, I think I requested if it was possible to get in touch with their office, just find out what opportunities there were for us to participate in that process further. And I was just wondering if that happened, and if so, what was the feedback we got?
Through you, Mayor Cole, that hasn't happened in the last week. The team's been focused on the NAIDOC preparations and sending around the Innovate Wrap, but I'm certainly happy to do that now that we've got the budget out of the way. And I'm happy to come back to council and give you some feedback on that.
Do I need an amendment for that, or? No? Okay. All right.
Councillor Hallett? Councillors? Okay. Oh, it was Councillor Castle. Sorry. You didn't want to? Well, there you go. Your opportunity has not been missed. Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? I declare that carried. That takes us to item 11. Oh no, sorry, we've done all of our 11s. 12.2, repeal of Local Government Property Local Law 2008 and approval to advertise Local Government Property Local Law 2021. Absolute majority decision. Mover and seconder, please. We're nearly there. Councillor Gondaszewski is moving. Good on you, you trooper. Seconded by Councillor Hallett. Any comments?
I just want to get clarification in relation to Dudley Meyer's comments on the bin store issue. Not keen to have bins on verges, and so wouldn't have necessarily thought that this applied, but can I just get some confirmation?
Through Mayor Cole, the question was around whether bins can be stored on the verge. That's not permissible under the current local law or the proposed local law or the current suite of policies that the city has. So if that's occurring anywhere, that should just be put through as a complaint and city can deal with it.
Thank you. Very pleased to hear that. And then also just a question, just to tidy up what Mayor Cole referred to, that the city does the city have capacity under this draft local property law to prevent verge parking? Like, is there a mechanism for the city to prevent that on a street by street basis rather than as a, if we chose to do so?
Through you, Mayor Cole, yes, we do have that ability. There's a few different ways that we could do it. So yes, it does exist.
Essentially, if we just put up a sign that said no verge parking and then someone did, they'd be parking in contravention of the sign. Is that correct?
Exactly, yeah.
Awesome. Love it. Thank you.
Doing really well, Jordan. Statutory planning knowledge plus your governance, it's all working really well. Well done. Okay, any further questions on 12.2 or comments? Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Declare that carried. Taking us to our lucky last item for the evening, 12. Sorry? Have we? Oh, look, when it was an en bloc, I crossed it out. So yes, we have 2 more items. Thank you for continually bringing that item forward. We will make sure it happens. 12.5, annual review of council delegations. This is another absolute majority decision. There has been a little bit of extra information coming from Director Corbellini today. It's moved by Councillor Gonchevsky, seconded by Councillor Wallace.
Just want to say thank you to the Executive Director for making some changes to what's come forward in the delegations. I am still going to put forward the amendment though, but that's all I've really got to say. So I'll wait for the seconder.
So I'll go to the seconder. Do you have anything to add? Okay, we're back to you, Councillor Gonchevsky, with your amendment on the green.
Can someone read it? My iPad's died because we've been going for 3 hours and 46 minutes and some struggling to remember the exact wording of my amendment.
I'm a little bit perplexed because it's got C struck through, but then it does say, seems to suggest that would not change the impact of any condition imposed is not struck through. Is that just a...
Through you, Mayor Cole, just to clarify, the text in C that remains or that is not struck out, being the words would not change the impact of any condition imposed, they are the current delegation wordings that exist. So the amendment would simply remove the additional words, proceeding would not change the impact of any condition imposed to remain status quo with the current delegations.
You sat through this entire meeting to tell us that, Manager. It's quite incredible. Well done.
I wouldn't be able to sleep tonight if I didn't see this through. Thank you.
Okay, is there a seconder for the amendment? Yes, Councillor Castle seconded. Any discussion on the amendment?
Just to be clear, I appreciate that there's a need to, try and streamline things for business, but I am aware that, things that may not necessarily be adjacent to residential properties, gyms, yoga centres, massage parlours, can still impact on residential amenity and have community consequences that can create long-term headaches for council. I would just like to always tread very carefully in this regard.
Thank you. Councillor Castle, any further comments? I'll put the amendment. All those in favour? Declare that carried. We're back to the substantive. Anything further? I'll put the substantive motion. All those in favour? Declare that carried. Thank you. Now we are at the last item. Drum roll. Item 12.7, appointment of a council member for the Mindarie Regional Council from the 1st of July 2021. This is another absolute majority decision. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Castle, seconded by Councillor Fotakis. Do you wish to speak to it? Do you wish to put forward your resume? No? Councillor Fotakis?
Only to add that absolutely have 100% faith in Councillor Castle. She's proven herself to be an exceptional councillor, so I think she'll represent our interests well and truly, and good luck.
Thank you, Councillor Fotakis. I'd just like to say that Councillor Castle has already been attending meetings and getting across what's been happening at the MRC, and has been doing a fantastic job. So it is only fair that she has been remunerated and take up this position. So thank you very much for putting your hand up. And I'd just like to say that it is a position that I have enjoyed. I really enjoy talking about waste and learning about waste. I think it's fantastic to be able to talk about calorific values of waste, to think about resource recovery, and to see what's happening in the waste sector. And thank goodness things are moving, because when I first joined the Mindarie Regional Council, I did think, gee, this is a 1970s approach. I'm not being critical of MRC, just generally in Western Australia, we had a very 1970s approach to waste management. The RRF facility was cutting edge. Look, I think things are just really shifting and moving at quite a rapid space now in the waste area, which has been really fantastic to see those changes in my time at MRC and at Vincent. So I think you will enjoy it. There's a lot of interesting subject matter to get your head across, and I'm sure you'll be absolutely fantastic at it, and you'll keep us well briefed. Are there any further comments? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. So we don't have any confidential items this evening or urgent business. And so I will declare the meeting closed at 10:52 p.m. 9:52 p.m. It feels like 10:52 though, doesn't it? At 9:52 p.m. Thank you for correcting me along the way.